welcome to episode 24 of the Luckycast. I'm your host, DeoxysPrime, and joining me on this edition of the anime podcast, we got Funk.
God, Steve, I'm fucking throat deep in banana right now. How would you start the podcast?
We got...
Yeah, I thought we were...
I don't know how to move on from that. We got Matt.
Hello.
And we got DL.
Hello.
We do not have Frank tonight, who got roped into some kind of family arrangement, and who
At
the fuck knows
8:30 at night, mind you.
Yeah, who the fuck knows where Kenny is? So that's where we're at. Just us.
Kenny is an anomaly.
Just us four. Colin didn't want to be here, but that's fine.
Yeah, we hate Colin.
You know, we should have asked him again and told him like Kenny and Frank are out. Does that change your opinion?
Was that his deal breaker?
It might have been. Colin, tell us.
He's not gonna listen to this.
Yeah,
And he'll not gonna know it unless Omega quotes that. So.
So yeah, Omega has another job to do that he probably won't get finished.
Well, that's the thing. This is gonna go up, and he's gonna be in the middle of like opening paint. And he's like, "Well, gotta do this. Sorry, duty calls."
I think we're getting a bit too inside baseball here, so we should move back to the main topic at hand, which is the summer.
Outside baseball.
the summer.
Help.
The summer 2017 anime season wrap up. That's what this is.
Can we talk about outside baseball instead? That was great. Oh man.
Maybe on the Sonic Board podcast, but not the Luckycast. I will not have any non-anime discussion on this podcast.
You can't cross them.
What had a baseball episode this season? Something had to.
No, nothing.
Oh
I bet 18 If had one, but you dropped it.
Probably. Indefinitely.
Definitely.
So since our resident Boku no Hero Academia expert Colin is not here, Funk gets to introduce the discussion for the second half of said Boku no Hero Academia. Funk?
The second half of the show, or the second half of the season?
The second half of the second season.
Okay, I'm not even memeing. I forget if we talked about it before. No, we didn't.
Yeah, we did. We talked about it on the spring podcast.
Did we?
Yes. We talked about the first half of the second season.
Was I there?
Yes. Maybe?
Oh my God. Okay, well, I really liked the second half a lot more than the first, which isn't to say that I disliked the first, but I felt that the school, what would you even call that? Like an exhibition or sports day?
The sports
tournament.
festival. The
sports festival, yeah. That arc I did not think had a lot of momentum. It was interesting, but it felt the stakes were low. And I think the exact opposite of that happened in the second half of the season. It felt like a lot more was going on. It felt a lot more important. The whole hero killer Stain arc was just fantastic. I loved it. I thought its conclusion was great. And it's more importantly, they do a really good job of making you feel the ramifications of it, at least in the episodes coming after. I don't know how much longer that's going to go on, that's going to last into the third season. But everything in this half of the season just felt more momentous. And I think the show gained a lot for it. Whereas, so I gave the very first season of this an 8, and I was going to give it a low 8 based on the first half of this core. But now it's a high 8. So we've gone from 8 to 8 to 8, but there's still a sense of progression there. And just like the show, there's a sense of progression. I really liked the the training bits with the main character, because it's one thing to kind of say, like, oh, I've gotten stronger, or training paid off. But the way that he approaches fights and engagements with villains is visibly different than prior to his training, which really makes it feel a lot more significant. So the show just handles kind of almost trite story beats very well, better than basically every other shonen. So I have nothing but good things to say about the second half of this. Well, maybe the one thing I'd say is that after the whole hero killer Stain arc, it does feel a bit downhill. Like they kind of climaxed maybe an episode or two too early, but it's not as bad as that might seem. It is just a little bit of a downturn.
There's definitely a lull after Stain.
The thing about this show is it has a very noticeable pattern of where you have like a school arc, and then you have like a serious villain arc, and they just alternate turns.
Yeah.
And I think that's good for the show overall, that you have breaks from the serious arcs. Where the Stain stuff was by far the part of the show that had the most amount of actual tension in it. But I think the arc before it and after work better in concert with that. And I do think, like, to me, the battle between Deku and Todoroki at the tournament arc, like, that was, to me, the highlight of the entire season.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Because that
felt
whole
a lot
tournament
more
arc,
climactic.
I would say so too.
There's no actual stakes to it, other than just personal stakes, but that's where you get a lot of the character development that carries the rest of the season all the way through.
Yeah, it's character drama, which
and-
is
the thing about that is that it does a really good job of developing Todoroki's character, but he then proceeds to take a back seat throughout the entire rest of the season, and I'm sure that's not true of the rest of the series as a whole. So that still serves a purpose, but I don't know. I don't think it does. I don't think it informs enough of the rest of the season to really make it like that standout moment.
It's arcs.
And I don't mean to say that wasn't a good episode, or that the character-driven stuff doesn't work, because it most certainly does. I'm just explaining why that did a little less for me than the more plot-driven events.
I mean, that's understandable, but like with a shonen show with a cast as big as this, I mean, before that arc, Todoroki was like a non-character. So anytime you want to establish a character is like even remotely important, you're going to have to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even if it's not going to pay off immediately, if you want him to have any sort of like fundamental role in anything that happens, you're going to have to like give us something like that.
That was my whole...
certainly better than him coming in on like some climactic battle and then having 15 minutes of flashbacks to then establish his character.
Yeah.
But see, that was my whole thing about the first season, is that they introduced all these characters and did nothing with them, whereas the second season does so much with almost all of them. Like, every character gets some kind of moment that you learn more about them or it develops them in some way. And obviously some get more than others, but that was missing in the first season for me, whereas the second season just goes all out in fleshing out the entire cast of this show, which is why I think the whole thing worked a lot better for me.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a good
But
point.
I also just love tournament arcs in general, so that's why the first half of the show worked for me. Whereas I don't know if you're as big into that funk.
No, I mean I liked the Cell Saga, I guess. But so you made a point earlier about it kind of alternating between school arcs and villain arcs, which I agree with. But I think the problem with that isn't that that happens, but the way that they're spaced out in the context of a television series. Like if you could somehow reorder them a bit or shift around with a couple of filler episodes to make it so that the series ends on the villain arc rather than the villain arc ending two-thirds of the way through and then just having like kind of mediocre setup for the next school arc end the season. You know what I mean?
No, it does feel weird. I agree with that. And if it was a different show, I probably would have deducted points for that. But we're approaching the point where this is starting to become more like a serialized shonen anime. Like Dragon Ball, or you know, like we've already have a third season confirmed. So it's getting to the point where the contents of the individual seasons like almost don't even matter anymore. It's not even like,
where like
I buy that.
It would work better if it just ran continuously, but obviously that's not possible. And it's good that it doesn't, so that they don't have to like insert filler like all the other shonen series had to do.
Yeah.
They don't have to have quality.
Right. Yo, it's a beautiful show too.
And that said, like, even though it wasn't technically the last episode, but like having Deku fight All Might is a pretty good way to end a season.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
Like, that was a really good episode.
Yeah.
Like I said, it wasn't the high point for me, but it's also not a bad place to leave off.
It's not. And I think that in a couple years this show is really going to benefit from being able to watch like seasons 1 through 6 just at your leisure. Like you said, it becoming more serialized, whereas having those breaks at less definitive moments is not ideal.
Yeah, it's tough.
But, I'm still super excited for the next season. Still loving the show.
Yeah. And I mean, on that point, I would get kind of worried if it was a different show, like I said before. Like if this was a show, like, I wasn't sure it would have a third season or not. Then I might be like, why did they leave off on that? But
Right.
Because if I were to ever rewatch it, the off chance I ever felt like rewatching some shitty anime, I would feel very like unfulfilled with that. But
there are other shows this season that felt like that. But having the knowledge at the end of this episode that, hey, they are actually making the next season as well. Like, that's a good feeling to leave off with too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we've certainly never reached as nail biting a cliffhanger as how's summer camp going to be.
Listen, summer camp episodes are always great, and you know it.
I do know it. I do. They're gonna have some hot spring shenanigans.
Yes.
Someone's gonna be wearing robes.
I mean, seeing Invisible Girl in her swimsuit's gonna be a real highlight.
Oh my
Do
god.
you think people wear swimsuits at hot springs?
Listen, there's gonna be beach episodes. There's gonna be beach episodes.
I thought
There
it was
might
in the
be one
mountains.
beach episode. There's gonna be one beach OVA at some point.
Oh my god.
You can have beach episodes at a lake, like it's been done.
Oh, is that in the charter?
Lakes can have beaches, believe it or not.
They can. I've been to one.
I've never been to a lake in my life.
Oh
I
my
was
god.
gonna have a joke after that, but I didn't really think of anything.
I haven't actually finished the show, but I really like it too. I'm like I haven't finished the last 2 episodes, but right at the moment it's kind of it's been jumping between an 8 and a 9, kind of leaning towards the 9, mainly because of episode 10. Because man, that was an episode.
Yeah.
Did you watch the first season as it aired, or did you catch up on it?
Me?
I have this vague recollection that you.
No, I watched it
hadn't
as it
seen it.
aired. I watched it
well.
as it aired.
I'm just dumb, I guess.
That was like spring of last year, I think.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, I watched that as it airs. I was like on that every week. I haven't been recently just because there's been a lot going on, but
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you gotta watch
right.
fucking NTR show.
yeah, you're right.
And
Don't you
gamers.
fucking dare. We'll get to that.
I mean, we can ask DL why he gave this show a 10.
Is that
Again.
wait NTR or Boku?
I mean, like what? Like you really can't see by. I mean,
No, I can. It's just like we gave you so much shit about giving the first season a 10 that
It's
I feel
just
like we
like,
gotta
it's-
continue.
it's the epitome of shonen. It started
It
off
is
that
pretty-
way.
This is pretty much just like quintessential shonen. Like this is like what all other shonen wish they could be.
Right. Like years down the line, when someone's like, "Hey, what shonen anime should I watch?" Like that's gonna be like number 1. I mean, that's it. It's so
It
good.
probably already is, honestly.
I would
Yeah.
think so.
It really is at this point, I would say.
I mean, at least in terms of like shonen fighting shit.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna be telling people to go watch Boruto.
Yeah, go watch all
Where's your
500
typical-
episodes.
Colin Bolt
100%.
comment when you need it.
It's pronounced Bort.
Is that on the fucking novelty license plate?
Yes.
See, I knew you would know.
All right. Any other thoughts on My
I
Hero
guess-
Academia.
You son of a bitch. I was about to say, I guess in the end, it was My Hero Academia, second season.
I went.
Your Hero
No.
Academia.
Woo!
I'm pretty sure we already made that joke before.
Probably. I'm pretty sure we've made like 90% of the jokes that we say.
We've made
Several
every
years
joke that's
before.
ever been made ever. Don't listen
Probably.
to this. Why would anyone listen to this?
Silence.
All right, so since Frank's not here, Funk, I'm gonna give you this show as well.
All right.
All right, let's talk about
Funk-
Kakegurui.
Funk Power Hour, baby. So I did a slapshod job of introducing this on the mid-season podcast. At that point, I'd only seen one episode. And I did that because Frank had canceled at the last minute. Funny thing.
Shocker.
But so the initial impressions I had on the show actually really held throughout. I was immensely entertained throughout the whole thing. You made the point of how the episodes kind of became formulaic and that robbed it of a little bit of tension. But I think that 3/4 of the way through they abandoned that formula.
They do a good job of breaking out of that loop.
Yeah, which really works to the show's strength because I hadn't gotten by that time in the show I wasn't exactly tired of it, but I also wasn't as engaged as I had otherwise been. So seeing something new was great. But yeah, I love the show for all 11 episodes of it. All 11 episodes that exist of this show I thought were really great. So just like, this is an 11 episode Korra, I would give it an 11 out of 10.
What about that weird OVA episode they stuck at the end?
Oh, where it gets really crazy? So the last episode of this show, episode 12, is borderline offensive to me. The thing is that it has, for 80% of it, it masquerades like an episode of Kakegurui. And I'm like, great. This is exactly what I wanted. We got our face-off climax between main character and the student council president. Can't wait to see what happens. And then the ending of their little duel is just the most non-ending that you can think of. And that's fine. Like you can't, you have your two principal characters and you can't exile one of them from the show. Like I wasn't expecting that to happen. But the way they resolved their little gambling game just seems to run so perpendicular to the main character's personality. Like I can't ever imagine her being satisfied with that outcome. And boy, is she satisfied.
It is the most anime-only episode I have ever seen.
Yeah, but it goes beyond being bad because it undermines the characters, which is just this show doesn't have like amazing characterization, but the reason that I was so engaged with the show is because of just the strength of the main character, just how because it's not a strong character, she's just fucking entertaining as all get out. You kind of get swept up in the amount of passion that she has for gambling.
She
and
does
it's
have
just
more layers than I thought she would. And
yeah,
they do,
she's not completely flat.
And like
in a few ways.
the showdown before that against the treasury guy, like it fully showcases like what her character is.
And then I think that all that is just almost undone by the last episode. So think back to the episode with the gun girl and the way the main character really just is offended by the way that she might be fixing the game or throwing the game or the corruption of pure gambling and how much that just like sticks in her frickin' craw. And then you just see it at the end and it's like, oh, it's a draw. Okay, that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, someone throw a fucking chair.
It is rough because it's like, what are they gonna do? Because if they did not do that episode and they just ended at like 11, that also would have been a little unfulfilling.
Right, that would have been unfulfilling. They can't, as an anime original, they can't just decide to remove one of the characters from the show. So I get that too. But if that's the case, that they were going to be painted into this corner, then I don't think the show should have been made. And, these things change in development. And I understand that you don't have perfect foresight.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems like a situation where there's no good solution. So they just shouldn't have bothered, rather than giving us this. Or maybe they are able to write something that is more akin to filler, but at least it doesn't, run against everything prior to it in the show's run.
Yeah, and I guess it's interesting because Boku no Hero Academia has a similar thing where the last episode is not really a strong last episode. It's basically just set up for the next arc, but it also feels like a satisfying way to end it. Whereas this clearly was not, especially because that was the entire build up of where her character is supposed to go. Like, she's eventually supposed to get to the point where she challenges the student council president, and that's the logical conclusion of her arc, and they just kind of throw it away as an anime only episode.
Right.
So it's like I can understand wanting to have the entire season be just this one story arc. But yeah, I think as rough as it would have been, they probably should have just found any other way to end it, even if that ending was also unsatisfying.
Right.
Because even if they make a second season, whatever happened in that last episode is just going to be not even acknowledged anyways. So
yeah, it's just so meaningless.
Which,
and I want to make yeah.
I was going to say, which is a little shame, because I'm not saying this was a great show overall, but it was one of the shows that I was very much entertained by every single week. Like, it wasn't one of those shows I put off watching for several weeks. Like, whenever an episode came out, I watched it, because I was always excited to know what happens next, even if I didn't think it was... Like, I gave it a 7, so I don't think it was the greatest show ever, but it in its own way, it was still very, very entertaining.
I was going to give it an 8 until I saw the last episode, and I knocked it down to a 7. So I agree with you, but I want to make one distinction about the ending. The way it ends, there's like a little bit of ambiguity on what the gambling result would have been, like what the identity of a certain card was, and that's left up to uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make it perfectly clear that my disgust for the ending has nothing to do with leaving that in the dark. It's not some dumb criticism like that. It was like, Liam, tell us. No. Fuck. Everything that I do know about the ending that I hate. And I wish more of it was obfuscated so I'd be less angry. But man. This is the utmost bungling I've ever seen of a show.
I think the most amazing thing is that this is a show that featured gratuitous fluids emanating from a girl's vagina, and yet that was not the most offensive part of the show for Funk.
Yeah, I mean that does say a lot. I certainly. Oh my god, the best, because the shots were just like of the floor, and then someone dumped an unseen bucket on there.
Well, the funny thing is, like, the shot before is her drooling, and then it cuts to that shot, and you think, wow, she's drooling a lot, and then you're like, oh wait, that's not where that's coming from.
That's like the most innocent thing I've ever heard. Wow, she's drooling a lot.
I still think overall the show is worth checking out.
I think so too. There's not a lot like it, I think. There's not a lot of shows that really match what it's doing for 90% of its run. It's very entertaining. It's very stylistic, which I like. And it's just kind of out there, But, so Steve, let's have a quick conversation since Frank's not here. So tell me about the Idol arc.
So the Idol arc happened. There's a character she challenged that's an idol, and the idol challenges her to an idol off. Mm-hmm. And it's a 2-part episode. The first one is entirely a waste of time setting up the second episode. And then they get to the competition, and they just skip, like, half of the challenges. And then the whole thing just comes down to her letting the main character, Yumiko, basically win so that she can come back in the end and upstage her, which isn't what happens anyways. But the whole thing...
Does she let her win?
Well, she was letting her win.
Up until the last one. Yeah.
But that it kind of comes back and bites her. But Either way, it just felt like a waste of time. Like they just needed to get through this boss to get to the next boss.
Right.
Which the guy after that is just like, it's a 2-part episode where she's challenging him to a game of poker, and it's like 100 times more intense and interesting than the stupid fucking idol shit.
Yeah, I mean, the idol episode was certainly low intensity compared to the rest of the show, and I agree that it's not the high point, and the best thing of it is just how it serves as a setup for the 2-episode arc that follows. But when we talked in the past, you seemed very upset, or at least offended by its existence, or at least how dumb it was.
Sometimes, for dramatic purposes, I make these things sound worse than they really are, but
I see.
It was definitely a dip in quality compared to what came before and what came after, omitting the last episode, of course.
Right. So as someone who watched the show in basically one day, I didn't really feel like that much of a lull through this little idol arc. I can imagine if I'd watched it every week, then that might have hit a bit harder. But yeah, it really just didn't register with me. I wouldn't have thought to talk about this if you didn't say to me at some point, Frank and I are going to argue about the idol arc on the podcast. Otherwise, it would have just rolled off my back.
I mean, the reason I made a big deal of it is because I knew Frank would like it just because it's idols. Like, for no other reason.
All right, well, Frank, leave a comment. Give us a out of 13 rating on how good or bad the idol episode was. The idol episodes were, I should say.
Sadly, next season, we're going to have to hear all about fucking idols all over again.
Oh my god. It's what is it, Love Live Sunshine Squad 2?
Yeah. The Next Generation Part 2.
What is the Discovery?
The new Star Trek?
Star Trek Discovery.
STD.
I'm guessing you watched the Red Letter Media video on it?
Of course, there's no other way I'd be aware of this.
Love Live Discovery.
I mean, I'm just waiting for them to put the Sunshine Squad out to pasture. Then we'll get a new one in. And maybe with the 3rd iteration, it'll dawn on Kenny and Frank just how soullessly manufactured this whole thing is.
I wouldn't count on it.
I fucking hate Japan.
Speaking of people who hate Japan, DL.
He's got to turn his mic back on.
Well, I'm not going to have my mic on for an anime I didn't watch.
Yeah.
You can listen to me breathing.
Well, this one you did watch. So tell us about Tsurezure Children. Or
Okay.
Tsurezure Children. It has more than one title for some reason. I'm sure one of you could explain why.
The title card has a D in it, but every other romanization I've seen has a Z.
Yeah, it's up to the preference of whoever's romanizing it, and the one with the D in it, whoever's doing that, they're doing it fucking wrong. Because that sound is like halfway between a D and a Z.
Is it a Tsu with the 10?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's like a Z sound, but I digress. Tsurezure Children is a show about nothing, I guess. I mean, there's not much to say about it. It's cute and it's funny. I mean, it's all these little love stories, mostly comical.
But they do have continuity.
Yeah, they have continuity. Generally, just cute little relatable stories.
Well, careful, man. You might trigger someone by saying it's relatable.
Oh, wait, never mind. It's not relatable. Never mind. It's the kind of show that you watch late at night and you realize that you really missed out on a lot in high school.
No.
Which is a genre unto itself.
It is. It's a running theme this season for me. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's much to say about it.
Well, you liked it, right?
I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. It was genuinely enjoyable every week. But I mean, it's hard to say there was something that stood out about it.
It was funny. It was actually the funniest show I watched this season.
It was actually funny. The writing was strong. But I don't know. I just don't have much to say about it.
Yeah, it's not a show that I don't think people just about. I think anyone who watches this show will like it, but no one's gonna be super passionate about it.
Right. There's nothing. You're not gonna dredge up any meaning from it, or you're not gonna go back and rewatch it. I mean, it's just it is. I don't want to say it's like a throwaway anime of the season, but that's kind of what it is. I mean, there's some things you really only need to experience one time. Yeah. Yeah. Why don't you tell us about some of those?
I feel like there was supposed to be a joke at the end of that sentence.
No, that sentence had nothing caked into it. It just is what it was itself. I don't know why it sounds like a fucking joke, but
probably because it came from you.
Yeah, well, my whole fucking existence is a joke.
I like the student council president and the Bancho girl.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask what your favorite couple was. Is that them?
Yeah. It might not be my favorite, but they were up there.
I think Matt and I are in agreement on that one.
Yeah, they're great. They're definitely the best couple.
I don't know. I really liked the comedy duo. I don't really know how to describe them.
I didn't like them, but their scenes made me really depressed.
It's a special kind of feel.
I really liked. I also really liked, even though they never actually get together, and they're still not together in the manga. I did like the shy kind of quiet girl and redhead or whatever their names were.
Oh, I have no idea how to describe them, but
yeah, no,
the girl. She's she's at music practice or whatever.
The girl who's super dense, who doesn't realize that the guy is trying to basically ask her out every time they're together. and then he just kind of gives up, and then she realizes that she's falling in love with him.
I like the blue-haired girl and the really aloof guy.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Their scenes were cute. I mean, what?
Oh yes. No, I remember.
The tall Chad guy.
Yeah. I mean, there were no characters I really hated.
No,
right.
But I would say if there's a criticism about the show, it's maybe they have too many couples, because some of them get completely lost in the shuffle, where you don't see them for 6 episodes or more. Do you remember the astronomy club girl?
Yeah.
You remember that? You remember that one?
They showed up one more time, and that's it.
Yeah, completely abandoned.
What really
maybe
sucks,
they just don't have enough content with them,
No, well, here's what really sucks though, is that I looked at some of the manga, and there is a couple that they completely overlooked that's actually amazing.
Oh,
and
really?
It's there's a couple where they're both basically completely emotionless, but they're it's hilarious the way they talk to each other.
So they just didn't include them, or?
Right. They just did not include them for some. Well, they're in the show. They have a cameo at one point, a couple points, but they never actually show their scenes for some.
I mean, I guess it just comes down to the decisions you have to make when you're cutting stuff for a 10-minute anime.
Right. Oh, I also really liked the two nerdy guys.
Yes.
And the girl that ends up going out with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough scenes. So the show's strength is how short it is, in that it's very easy to watch that way. But also, I feel like it didn't have enough time to do everything it wanted to do. This, if it had been 24 10-minute episodes, I think that would have been better. Because I think this show still had more room to work with than what they gave us. But I think if this show was a full length 20-minute, 24-minute episode anime, I don't know if I would have kept up on it. Even though it was still good, it's just I like the way it was presented. It just made it a lot easier to watch for me.
Yeah, definitely. And there's definitely something to be said about being able to sit down and watch just 10 minutes every week. Because shows like this do tend to overstay their welcome, because they tend to have these characters that have one joke associated with them, and they just bash you over the head with it over and over again. But I mean, I agree. I think it could have gone on for a little longer, but I'd rather be left wanting than left sick of the show.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, I
And I
feel like
think-
this would not work as a full-length show.
Oh, definitely not. But I think the fact that it, someone mentioned that they wanted more from certain couples that didn't get screen time, and I think by omitting certain couples when they just didn't feel the need to include them is part of why it was able to go on. Because if they didn't have enough to put these people in the show regularly, it probably just would have ended up dragging if they felt some kind of need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the astronomy club girl, like what else could they really do with her? If they didn't really think of anything, then just leave her out.
Right.
One of my favorite moments in the show was there's that one couple, like the girl always asks this guy out, and he always puts off answering her, and he's got like the sister. And
Yeah.
and at one
girl-
point, she's texting him, and his
Yeah.
sister is the one who answers the texts, and like it's just hilarious. It was the funniest part of the show for me. But that couple doesn't have all that much screen time relative to the other ones, and it's just they did something really funny with them, and then they got out, and that's fine.
They're that's actually one of my favorite couples too. Like she's just that girl is just great.
But I think this might be the only show that I laughed out loud at this season, and it was often.
Yeah. It was actually funny, which is a big deal for comedy anime because most of the time they're just not
I
funny.
mean, Matt's our resident Japanese comedy expert.
Oh god.
So if he finds it funny, that's
I
the
found it
seal of
funny,
approval.
yeah. I do hate there are a lot of comedy shows I watch that just had terrible humor. And this show had very, very good humor.
Yeah.
The most Japanese aspect of the comedy, I think, was the what was his name? He was like the master of romance or something. That
The
blonde guy.
Romance Master.
Yeah, and
I actually liked it.
I thought he was really funny, but I think that was the most Japanese aspect of the show's humor.
Oh yeah, that was just pure easy squeezy Japanese.
But the fact that they didn't overuse him is why it works so well.
Right.
Like he always showed up exactly when you weren't expecting him to show up, and that's why it worked.
Right. The girl though who falls in love with him is
She
a
was very
different
one
story.
note, yeah.
She was annoying, but at least she only appeared like twice.
She
And-
got a good laugh out of me when she's like diving to catch him. And
Oh,
she
that
catches
was-
him, and he's like, "Oh, that was my after image." It's kind of lost it.
that stuff was pretty great.
Yeah.
And just the part where he tries to catch her and she just like elbows him in the stomach or something.
Oh,
Matt
he's got a
finds
little cough.
domestic abuse funny.
Huh?
A little cough.
Had a little cough for like a month and a half.
I guess Funk really is Tonari no Seki-kun.
Fuck.
Well,
Well, it's a good thing we got that happy little show out of the way, because the next show is oof.
Equally
Matt,
happy.
oof.
Uh-oh.
Tell us about this show
Right.
you made called Made in Abyss.
Oh yeah, I made this. I made this show. This is my show. This is Made in Abyss. So yeah, Made in Abyss is phenomenal. It's great. I will say, I was a little worried because at first because it felt like it wasn't really for the first few episodes, probably up to episode 9, it didn't really seem like it was going anywhere. They were definitely proceeding through the plot, but you get to episode 10 and all of a sudden It's like it's just a big slap across the face. Okay, Funk. I see you. The chat. I know. It was good before it got dark, but that's what made it get much better because you start to see the real consequences of going into the abyss and what exactly lies down there and how truly horrifying this place is. Like, just episode 10, it's just basically, I don't know, like a good 15 minutes of watching a 12-year-old girl suffer, bleed out of every orifice, and then have her arm broken, and yeah, it's great.
That's a good old time.
Yeah, I was surprised they really followed through with that, huh?
Oh yeah, they did not censor anything.
I think that's the first time. That's the first time I've ever like cringed at an anime. Not like ironically, not because it was being shitty.
God damn it! I was about to say.
But because it honestly made me feel uncomfortable.
It was hard to watch.
It was genuinely disturbing, yet at the same it was hard to watch, yet at the same time, that episode just flew fucking by.
Yeah, it was gripping. It's like I would call it the most like gripping 20 minutes of anime you'll watch all year.
Oh yeah, and yeah, that whole episode is just phenomenal. And then they have a little bit of a cool down. With episodes 11 and 12, you kind of see the aftermath of that. You meet Nanachi, and you kind of get to learn a bit about her. And she's amazing, because she's a cute little fluffy bunny that you just want to hug. And then
you want to hug her even more when you find out about her.
And then you find out about her past. And then you find out about Bondru, however you pronounce that, I don't know. But best dad, as everybody refers to him as, which I don't think the anime really got into. I have
no idea what you're talking about.
As to what? There's
the guy
a
in the mask.
Yeah.
No. What I mean is, I don't understand why they would call him best dad.
There's a reason. I don't know why exactly, but there's a reason for it. And well, basically, like episode 13. Again, it's a double length episode. It's like 48 minutes, and even then, that episode just like flies by. Because of how gripping it is. Like you see the background of Nanachi and her friend Midi, and you see them get horribly tortured, basically, by this just crazy mad scientist.
Yeah, that was fucked.
That was insane.
The thing about the show to me was like it was always good right from the start, but I was never really invested in like the characters or what happened to them until we got to episode 10. Before that, I would say the show did a really, really good job of like building its own universe and creating this very interesting setting and asking a bunch of questions that I wanted to know the answers to. Like, I want to know what the fuck happens to them, the further down they get into the abyss. So a lot of it was just waiting to get there, and like the part where they meet up with Ozen, I that was the one part of the show I felt like dragged a bit because it was like an episode of a half of. Like, I'm evil and I'm stopping you. Oh, wait, just kidding. I was only testing you. It was like... I do feel like that was... They drew that out a bit too much.
Yeah, I would...
When you describe it like that.
Well, no, I mean, because when Steve describes it like that, he's right. Because I was about to disagree with him, but he's right. Because, I mean... Ozen as a concept... I thought those episodes were, like, conceptually good, but... Yeah, the way they played out was kind of stupid. Like, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be scared of her, if I was supposed to hate her, and I mean, like, not in a good way either, because it was just flip flopping constantly.
And it's like you can see it coming the whole time. It's like they're not going to stop here, so there's got to be some twist to this,
right?
And obviously she's not going to stop them. So it was no surprise when it turned out to be a haha. I think the whole time.
I was kind of surprised.
I just pretended to break your skull in with my foot.
I was kind of surprised because that's the point where I actually got more on board with the show is when they got there, and I thought that I would start to hate it at that point because, I mean, the thing I liked about the show is basically just that it was different. It was something
Right.
fucking different.
Yeah.
It has notes of like Ghibli, like Jules Verne. It's got kind of like a little cave story thing going on, maybe.
Yeah.
It has like this Japanese horror kind of storytelling, like almost like a Dark Souls kind of thing going on.
I was
Oh
about
my
to say,
God.
as much as I hate to say it because of how much of a meme it is, this is like this really
the Dark
is
Souls of
like
anime.
a very Dark Soulsian.
It has hints of
anime.
it. It has hints of it for sure.
Yes,
Definitely.
definitely.
In both the world and the way the plot plays out, and but one thing I didn't like about it was, I think, the way the plot progressed in the early episodes, and just how there's however many distinct layers to the dungeon, and they have to get to the bottom layer, and every episode they're in a different layer, and it felt very methodical.
I liked that. I liked that a lot.
And also
actually.
think that's what makes when shit goes south in the fourth layer, like that's why that works so well, because it just seemed like everything was going smoothly, and then you find out like what this abyss actually is.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right about that. But I mean,
Everyone's talking about like how dangerous it is, and like you got to be a certain level to get deep, and they go through the first 3 levels with very little problem.
Yeah,
And then
Yeah.
you see the true nature of it very quickly.
And I
right.
think
Yeah, that
really,
makes sense.
yeah, and they're I was kind of thinking like, man, they really are going through these layers very easily without
Right, and I
a
was
whole
worried
lot of
about
effort.
that.
But I think the main reason is because, well, I mean, she has a fucking robot that has extendo arms and can just shoot anything and kill it instantly.
Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it's like, she does kind of have a pretty big crutch there, especially since he's literally an artifact from the
Yeah.
abyss. So he's not affected by it at all.
Right. Yeah.
So-
yeah.
So it's kind of a very minor thing, but I really enjoyed at the end of each episode checking in on the little map display that they
Yes.
put
Oh
up.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you just you see them get lower and lower and lower, and it's very satisfying. It lends a sense of fluidity to the show, how fast they were progressing through. But
Mhm.
we're all talking about how good the show is once it gets dark, or episode 10, so to speak. But I really liked the fact that they kept the lid on that until so late in the run. I think
Yeah.
the show would have suffered a lot if that amount of, I guess, gruesomeness or
Edginess.
Yeah, like
edge.
Played
Like
it
if that
too early.
if that pervaded more of the show, I think it would have gotten tiring really fast.
Yeah.
So
and
and the fact, what we've been talking about, how fast they were progressing through, just creates a sense of contrast with episode 10, and that's why it works so well. If they were to execute it in basically any other way, I think it wouldn't have been as effective or enjoyable, quote unquote enjoyable to watch. So yeah, maybe like the show got better at that point, but I really would not have wanted it to happen any earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. I think you might be right. But I mean, one of the things when you talk about the contrast, I can't help but think of shitty shows like Madoka and stuff like that. And
Oh, you
like-
mean subversive shows?
yeah, it's very subversive. But no, like you see a show like this, and it's like it's amazing how much it respects itself.
Right.
And how it's really not heavy-handed with this change in tone at all. It feels very natural, and it's shocking, yeah, but not in like an exploitative way,
Yeah.
And I thought that was really refreshing, especially because
Mm.
we've been getting into this ever since Madoka aired. We've
Oh,
probably had
yeah.
like at least one anime a season that has an epic dark twist.
We're like
And,
this
you know-
anime, only darker.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not trying to say anything. It's just, these characters are on an adventure, and at one point things get a little tougher. At one point things get a lot tougher, and then they're back on their adventure once they get past it. like after all that dark shit, they're joking about the kid's fucking erection in the lake. You know, the show doesn't take itself so seriously that it's like, oh, I'm making a statement here and subverting your expectations.
Right.
No,
and it knows how to switch between. It knows how to pace itself.
Yeah,
I would say
to go back to how fast they went through the first 4 levels or so.
Yeah,
like, I think that pacing works fantastically in the show's favor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason why that twist works here where it doesn't work in a lot of other shows is the fact that for as gruesome as it is, it's not like it's just torture porn. That pain, that showing everything that happens to her is for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
In demonstrating just how of a torturous place the Abyss can be.
Yeah,
and it also works for what is his name? Reg?
Yeah.
His character, like the way, it does a great job of
famous.
kind of like putting him in parallel to Nanachi in how they both, see these really just terrible things happen to their friends, and they're left together for a long time while, Mitty's fucking retarded and Liko's just out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So like that kind of shared history works really well in that developing their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why I don't even think you can really call it a twist, where it is just a good plot.
It's just a tonal shift.
It is kind of like foreshadowed because they literally do spell out like early on what happens as you go up through each level of the Abyss, and like they wouldn't go. It's like, okay, if they're gonna go into this full detail about this, then clearly we're gonna see this happen somewhere along the line.
Right, but that could just be a throwaway character, if it was a cheaper kind of show.
And I guess and doing it with your main character is a really great way of just kind of establishing how horrible it is.
Like, even when they explain it, like, I don't think that really does it justice.
No, it definitely doesn't.
But like, the way they showed it was, like, so much more terrifying than even just... Because normally when you describe something, you could make it more terrifying than it actually is. But this was, like, the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nothing they said, like, really prepares you for that.
Yeah.
Right.
And this being an anime, like, when that scene started and he was pulling her up, I was like, okay, this is gonna happen, but we're not really gonna see much. Like it's not gonna play out the way they said it would. And then she just starts fucking bleeding from her eyes. And it's just fucking terrible.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Oh yeah.
She pisses herself a lot.
And she pisses herself.
That's the entire show.
She does do that a lot.
Almost makes you think the author had some kind of fetish or something.
Yeah, let me tell you, he does not hide his fetish as well. I mean, he literally has drawings of like some of the, like whenever he draws Reg, he does draw him with quite puffy nipples.
Yeah, he has his characters like naked most of the time.
I mean, the constant allusions to the punishment of stringing naked children up.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire show.
There is an illustration he made of Mark in that position too. So there you go.
Yeah, he's definitely into it.
And oh man,
I've got an image that will really make Funk think.
Oh yeah.
Is it?
Are we going to jail for this?
Yeah,
That's really good.
It is very perfect how well he fits like that. There's another one I saw that's similar to this. We should post this. We need to post this in the actual thread though, for this context to make sense.
We should also post that video of all those really big ants that I linked you to in the last podcast.
Oh god.
But great show. It's a great show.
It is a very great show.
Yeah, and even though the fact that, like, this is a show where it doesn't end where the story ends, like, there's clearly a place to go off from there, it didn't feel like an unfulfilling ending either.
I did like how it ended in a very disappearance of Haruhi way, where you have Bonjude going like, I wish we will see each other again soon or something.
Yeah. So you were saying before that the manga is like not very far from where the anime ends, right?
So where the manga is at right now. So the anime got up to like the part where they go down and they're starting to go down into the 5th layer, and the 5th layer is where they have the confrontation with Bonjude and what happened with him, and kind of it goes more into his terrible experiments. You learn more about him. You learn. I mean, I don't know exactly what happens since I haven't read it, but
Reddit. You said Reddit.
Oh my god.
Nah.
You learn about why he's considered the world's best dad, and why he supposedly did nothing wrong, much like Hitler.
That's just
I do love did nothing wrong.
But
Well,
I think,
see, that's the thing. Like, if he's a good villain, then he'll have a good justification in his own mind for what he's doing.
He is apparently he's supposedly like a fantastic villain, not necessarily because he did nothing wrong, but because he's just a psycho about science, and he's just willing to do anything for it, and he's just crazy. And what I've read about him is that his passion and love for it is just like it feels justified. Like you can tell, okay, this guy isn't just like, wahaha, I'm gonna take over the world. He's like, I genuinely am doing this for reasons because I believe in them, and he's just extremely charismatic too, is what I've read. Like he's a villain. Yes, he's a villain you love to hate, that you just want to see more of because of how charismatic he is and how awful yet wonderful he is, based on what I've heard.
I get the feeling at some point this show will get another season.
Yeah, but not anytime
soon.
Especially considering the fact that, like, I think where the anime is like they just started going into the 6th layer. Like, apparently where this show finishes off is around chapter 26 of the manga. And the manga right now is still waiting for, like, chapter 43. So we're not very far. It's not that much far off.
No, but in 2 years, I could easily see there being enough material.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
like in another.
Typically, how far seasons come across.
Yeah, and like another couple of years, there definitely could probably be a 2nd season. But I know apparently this did not sell very well in Japan, much like the manga did not until they introduced Nanachi and Bonju, which apparently saved the manga from being canceled.
So funny you say that. I saw something today about how pre-orders of the show like increased dramatically after the end of the last episode.
Yes.
So
they did, and I think part of that is I read that the sales for the Blu-rays like very much reflected the sales of the manga, where literally the point where Nanachi is introduced is where the sales start to go up. So yeah,
so
Nanachi,
what is so unappealing? What is so unappealing about the first 3/4 of the show or the manga? That
it's not anime.
It's not anime enough. It doesn't have a cute fluffy bunny.
No, it's not that, and it's not.
But it's got cute children, and that's like the star of every anime.
It's just like it's clearly like the setting up point, and you're not really sure. Like it could go in either direction. This could be like a generic like who gives a shit show, or it could be something better.
Right. And
it's also not pandering to anyone. So if it's not pandering to anyone, you got to make a good show.
What about urine fetishists?
You know what? When you're right, you're right.
Yep.
Okay, so does anyone else have anything else to add beyond any more fetishes?
So I'm surprised that they never revealed who Maiden Abyss was. I was expecting there to be some big reveal that Liko was the Abyss Maiden.
I mean,
And,
technically she is.
Fucking kill yourself.
She literally
I mean,
is, though.
It needed to end with someone on a typewriter writing a story called Made in Abyss.
Does anyone else really, really, really hate the title card?
The what?
I
the
don't
logo?
really remember. Let me look
Oh.
at this.
I mean, it's not.
Disgusting.
It's not great. It isn't. It's definitely not great. I'll tell you
I
that.
don't mind it. It's got the look of like when I think about this like slapshod society of people, banding together and making like shitty technology to go hunt down in this abyss. Like this is the kind of logo
really
I think
speaks
of.
to you?
I mean, it's certainly not as bad as something like as say Tiger and Bunnies or Dog Days.
I don't mind.
There's nothing wrong with Tiger and Bunny's logo.
Yeah.
It's just very matter of fact.
Well,
I-
a Tiger and Bunny defense squad here.
I mean, I love Tiger and Bunny. Don't get me wrong, but the title, like
It looks
It's-
like shit.
it
It's
is kind of
the logo that says Tiger and Bunny.
Okay.
It looks like if Tiger and Bunny was a Toy Story knockoff in fucking 1997.
We can all agree though that Dog Days probably has the worst like title card of all time.
Dog Days has the worst everything of all time. It's not the start.
Good thing Kenny's not here.
Look at this. Look at the fucking gradient on the bunny. Just look at it.
What should
Yeah,
we
but, I mean,
use? What
come
should
on,
we
you're not
use
gonna
for our
see
font for Tiger? How about Garage Door?
Yeah. Look, you're not gonna see that and be like, "Wow, that's shitty." Like it's
Yeah,
not gonna
it's a very-
are.
That's
Yeah,
a
you
very
are.
Western. That's a very Western comic style of logo, which fits that show perfectly.
It looks like the logo for a toy store.
Maybe I'm just autistic about this because I took. Fucking
Okay, does anyone else have anything to add that's not to do with fucking logos?
No.
I really, really want to fuck that rabbit.
Wait, can we talk about pathos if we can't talk about logos?
No.
Watching
Shut up.
Watching Nanachi cry was almost as hard to watch as watching a lolly have blood shoot out of her
Oh
eyes.
god, yeah. Yeah.
You'll never be incinerated to death amongst your favorite stuffed animals.
I was gonna say I like the part where he killed the retard.
Oh yeah, by the way, I haven't actually seen what exactly happens with Bonejerd and what he does later on. But based off of what I know, based off of like the little snippets I've seen of the manga, I kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I can confirm if my assumptions are correct. Yes, it gets worse.
Oh no.
Great. Perfect.
Like,
All right.
I guess this is Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, if you had anything to say, we're going to break.
We're going to break.
Yeah.
I'm about to break.
But after the break, we'll have a special guest joining us.
Oh my
it's
God.
Frank.
Wait. I hope it's not Frank. It's not Frank.
Frank.
Stay tuned to find out if it's Frank or not. It's Frank. We'll be right back.
God damn it.
Hello, welcome back to the Luckycast. As promised, we have our special guest Frank here.
Oh shit! You promised that I would come?
I mean, you messaged me and just said,
Not like that.
call me during the next break. And then
Oh.
and then before we went to break, I was like, we're gonna have a special guest here.
Oh shit! Nice.
This is going to like sound really redundant to anyone listening to the whole podcast.
But
I just
anyways,
didn't realize that. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that my appearance was just gonna have this whole big hullabaloo behind it.
Well,
but I'm
like-
very happy to be here.
I just wanted to point out, Frank, you are an adult. You don't have to do whatever your parents want you to do.
I realize that, but I also I'll be totally honest. I completely forgot that we were having a podcast tonight, and my parents asked me to go out to dinner in the city, and they were like, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna pass that shit up. And then
So
I get a
I
message-
guess you didn't get dragged there now, did you? You
No.
just chose to go of your own volition.
Anyways, as punishment, Frank, you have to introduce new game.
I mean, that's not really that much of a punishment, all things considered. So new game, which is actually the biggest missed opportunity of the season because it's not called New Game Plus. I'm sure that a ton of people have made that joke, but I just like to make that clear one last time going into this. Overall, I thought that compared to the first season of New Game, there's a marked improvement in the drama department. A lot of the characters feel a lot more fully fleshed out, and they really do a great job of getting into the nitty-gritty of what the workplace is like in terms of how the effect that it could have on the characters. That end, it introduces some new characters, namely, Nenechi, and Nenechi is a shit.
Nenechi was in the first season, you fucking retard.
I realize that, but she's a shit. And,
He is a shit.
And she's terrible. She's very catty, and she brings down the whole entire dynamic. But
he means the other one, Funk.
Oh,
yeah.
He's talking about Nenechi's rival.
Yeah, that's right.
No, well, there's two catty ones. There's like pink-haired catty and side ponytail catty.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean Nenechi. I meant the rival character that got introduced in around episode 8.
When you were talking about her being shit and bringing down the whole show, you'll have to excuse me for thinking you were talking about Nenechi.
No, I can buy that, but it really, because the show had a very strong dynamic going for it in the first 7 episodes, and then it introduces these 2 new characters, and things kind of, peter out a little, and it comes back to a strong conclusion. I enjoyed it a lot more than I enjoyed the first season, but overall, I'd still give it a solid 7.
Well, so I have to disagree entirely with you, Frank.
Okay.
Watching the second season of New Game, and I'm going to preface this by saying I gave both the first and the second seasons a 7, and I would describe them as a high 7 versus a low 7.
Okay. Whereas the second season is below 7.
Right, respectively,
okay.
Yeah. So, watching this, I was almost floored with how little I retained from it. Watching New Game, ! Was just baffling because I finished it and I looked back. I'm like, I only remember like 5 episodes worth of content. It was the most nothing series of a show that I've watched in a long time because it felt like something was happening. But when I thought back on it, nothing really made any kind of mark on me. It's just, it was so much of the same from the first season, but worse. And New Game always struck me as a show that I really enjoyed the visuals of, and I wish that they had a little more to go along with that. And I understand that in this season they had, some character development for Alba. They introduced some new characters, but when I think about what I got from this season, it gave me very little. And I'm very disappointed. And it's weird to be disappointed with a show that I was just kind of cool on going in, because I don't think the first season is anything super remarkable. But yeah, I was very much left wanting by this season.
I would only agree with you somewhat.
Yeah, I thought that early on there were some very. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Frank. No, Frank, go ahead. Where did
Is there a delay?
Okay, whatever. I'll just go then. So, I do think it was doing something. Oh, so Frank dropped the fucking call. No wonder. So in the first half of New Game Season 2, I think it was absolutely going somewhere, and then it got away from that. I think the relationship and the sort of friendly rivalry they formed between Alba and Yagami, like that was legitimately great. And I talked about this earlier in like the CT, where I talked about how this show, for like a slice of life show, does drama better than a lot of dramatic shows. And I think that first half of the show, of this season, exemplifies that. But the problem is, like, once they resolve that dramatic tension between the two of those characters, it was like the author had no idea where to go with the story from there. So they introduced 2 new characters who don't really add anything. And what you ended up having was,
What is happening?
Frank, you're in a storm right now.
I'm sorry.
No noises.
So, It's you know a lot of this is like a very slice of life, cute girls, doing cute things show, right? But I always felt like the reason why New Game was so much better than the typical cute girls doing cute things show is that was like that kind of fluff was like 30% of the show, whereas 70% of it was devoted to like actual characterization and development of these characters. Not to mention like giving like an accurate portrayal of an office of the goings on in like in an office life of these characters. And that all that stuff was in the second season, like the first half, but just it gets away from it when it introduces these two new characters, because the best example I can give you of what works and what doesn't in the show was like episode 9. And episode 9 is like complete fluff, right? So
what happens in that one?
So in the first half of the show, it has like the two other girls, like Yun and Hajime, and they go to that like Sentai show in the park.
Oh, yes.
And that's the first half of the episode. But like those are two characters who've been like there since the start of the show, but have never really gotten any development or characterization. And that was just a really good part of the show, giving those characters time to each other, giving us like a view into their backstory, quote unquote, you know, as much story as this show has, but like showing us things about those characters we didn't know before and making us liking them a little bit more. And then the second half of that same episode was the two new girls in their apartment trying to cook dinner and chasing down a cockroach. And it was like the biggest fucking waste of time of anything of this season.
To be fair, we don't know for sure if it was a cockroach or a spider or what. But no, I agree. And I think that moments like that take up way too much time throughout the entire season. Because when I hear you talk about some of the more positive aspects, like the rivalry between the two artists or the kind of real life office moments, those are very much in the minority. When I think of like the rivalry, I think of the one episode, and then that's resolved, and like it's alluded to very late in the season, but for the most part, it's just gone.
No, but like,
and then a lot of like the real life office aspects take a back seat to the more anime shenanigans, like, oh, now we're all gonna dress up in maid costumes.
Yeah. I know that was unforgivable too.
So I think it's the balance between the better parts and the more anime parts has shifted a bit from the first season.
I don't know. I do think I didn't see any of that in like the first half of the show. Like I think that artistic rivalry between the two characters was a very driving force of those first 6 episodes, and I don't think it ever really got away from that too much. But like in the second half, like in the first season, like she joins when they're already like, you know, well into the development of that game, right? And in this show, they start a game from beginning to end, like from design, concept to completion of the game in one season. But like the second half, like you wouldn't even know they were making a game because it's barely even alluded to. Whereas in the first season and the first half, I think the decisions in making the game were an important aspect of the series.
Right,
So,
and I think that for that reason, I felt when they had finished the game that the whole thing felt just extremely rushed.
mhm.
They just reached the end of the season and they're like, oh, the game's done. I'm like,
Yes.
really?
Yeah, I completely agree with you there, and that's why I do think the second half dropped the ball. But I still maintain that the first 6 episodes of this season is like the best that the series in general has ever been. Whereas the first season was much more consistent in everything it did, and the second season was less consistent, but the highs were higher and the lows were lower. If that makes any sense, like that's why
I guess I can buy that.
because like to me, I gave the first season 8 and I gave this season an 8, but that's because they of just basically what I just described. Of I like for the first half of the show, I was ready to give this show like a 9. Like that's how much I was in love with it. I thought like this is a slice of life show that is actually doing something, and then it stopped doing something. So it was very frustrating to see that happen to it, and ultimately, like whenever you have an author who seemingly run out of ideas, like the introducing new characters aspect always seems to crop up in a show. So that was kind of the thing that made me look at it and say, I don't think he really had a good idea of how he wanted these characters to go about completing this game. So he just introduced these rival characters to Aoba and Nenechi, who didn't really need rivals. Even in saying that, I do like that they brought up the kind of jealousy aspect of that one girl had towards Nenechi. Like someone in an office looking at someone saying you got this job just because you knew someone. That's a very real thing, and I can totally understand where her character was coming from. So that was a good aspect of the show that they handled poorly by just having her come out the first time she meets Nenechi and just throw fucking shade in her face and just say you only got this job because you knew someone, right to her face. Like, that's not what people do. That's not a good way to handle drama. So
that's subtlety right there.
so that's just like an overall symptom of the season, high and low, of you have this good aspect of what it's like to work in an office, you just handled it really poorly. So, yeah, it's rough. I really like the show overall. I just don't like how they dropped the ball in the second half of this season. But I can see where you're coming from as well, Funk.
I do want to say, on the subject of dropping the ball, I really... The delta between what the very end could have been and what it was is much higher than it has any right to be. Because I think that's a great setup. She's going to take this plane out of there. They rush to meet her at the airport, and time to get out all those things you couldn't say before. And there just wasn't much emotional weight in that moment. Like, it didn't feel as momentous as it could have. And then it's robbed even more of that when all the other characters show up for no reason, just to have one little send-off title card of everybody standing next to each other. And it just felt so hollow.
Yeah, I mean, that is how these kind of shows go, but also I would say I do think I was more invested in these characters going back to even the first season than you were, so that I do think that moment has impact if you are invested in these characters, which I was, but I can see why you weren't necessarily in that same boat. Because at the end of the day, it is kind of a fluffy slice of the life show with, an office full of girls getting up to lesbian antics. Like, you can't escape that anime aspect of this show. But I still do think it handles its characters better than the typical slice of life show, which is why even when it got to that end, even after all the stuff in the second half I didn't like that still had a bit of a punch to me of something I enjoyed to an emotional level. Like, it did get to me a bit.
Yeah, I buy that. I don't know. Yeah, after just like the second half, I'll admit I was a little checked out. Maybe if I had been more on board, I wouldn't have been as biased against the ending.
Maybe if Nenechi was in this season, you would have liked it more.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, at least Nenechi had precedent, whereas the other two characters did not.
That's true.
But she was also shit.
Hey, she made a game on her own. Have you made a game?
Have you made a game? God damn it.
Oh my god. I haven't finished the season, but all I know is that it was very jarring. Definitely going from, say, like the first 6 episodes where you have this kind of drama and competitiveness. Competitiveness between Aoba and Yagami. And then you go to, like, I think it was episode 8, where it's like, yo, I'm gonna dress all you up in these maid outfits.
That was really bad. Like, even after that aired, I posted that in the CT right away. I was like, oh no.
Surely that was this season's We Saved the Laundromat.
You guys have never went to a maid cafe, or surely we have to make you experience it, and they have them all dress up in it. And it's like, a what?
By the way, Funk, I heard that tease, and I'll tell you why you're wrong later in the podcast. Also, welcome back, Funk.
Sorry about that.
Oh my god, you're very loud now.
Oh no. Oh my god. Why is there always a problem?
Just speak
Okay.
softly and you'll be fine.
Okay.
Carry a big stick.
So that's a new
The
game.
Teddy Roosevelt joke.
Yeah, we all got that.
Okay, Funk.
Yes.
How much
Oh,
do you
boy.
know about ballroom dancing?
Well, let me open this discussion with some wise words from a prophet. And I quote, "Yes, 1 sec de contacto, 2 sec, soste check my toe, 3 sec, o teo dozo right." And thus, welcome to the ballroom, I guess. The fucking meme OP has been stuck in my head all season.
I didn't know Japanese people knew the word "sec."
Yeah,
I think that's the most surprising thing about this show.
it is, or that they knew the popular English turn of phrase "check my toe."
Is that a
But-
turn of phrase?
No, it's mind-boggling every time I fucking hear it. I'm like, what does it mean? It just gets me every time.
He's got to check his toe.
Yo, check my toe, bruh.
I never found that strange, but now that you point it out, I guess it's weird.
Anyway, we talked earlier about Boku no Hero, and this is, whereas that was like exemplary shonen, I think this is more just archetypical shonen. It's a sports show. It's got everything you would expect. It's got the shot of the guy walking onto the arena / stage / field where the camera is like below him,
This is a
looking up
joke,
at his
right?
back. What?
You're setting
This
up
is not
like
a joke. This is not a joke. This show is, if you were to tell me, all right, this show airing this season, it's shonen sports anime, like this is exactly what I'd expect. To the fucking letter. It hits every beat. Like, I understand that ballroom dancing isn't the same sport as like fucking soccer or basketball or volleyball or whatever, but this, this show is Haikyuu. This show is Kuroko no Basket. This show is fucking Days. They're all the same show. And they're all very entertaining, and I like them. But I can't tell you why this is any better or worse than any of the other ones. It's just a new coat of paint on the same formula, depending on what sport they're doing.
Yeah, but they have giraffe necks.
They do have giraffe necks, and like the most curvaceous backs I've ever seen. It's wonderful. But
Welcome to AV Games.
yeah. But like, to talk about the show individually is almost kind of fruitless. It's just, again, it's just so archetypical. I'm thinking back to when I ranted about, or rather raved about Days on, I don't know, a year ago, whenever that was, in Days season 2, because everything I could say there just applies to this. It's just, it's about the energy. It's about seeing the results of hard work and practice that's ultimately satisfying to most people, because everyone can relate to that. It's just these same beats happen all the time.
Yeah,
in
but the difference is there's a very central theme of cucking someone else by stealing their partner.
Oh yeah.
So maybe I was the wrong person to introduce this one. Dio, why don't you take it?
I should have taken the helm because there are a lot of cuck shows this season. I think
It's
in
weird.
like 75% of the shows this season, someone gets cucked somehow.
A large percentage.
But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just don't watch enough sports anime. I thought this was probably the best show of the season. I mean,
Don't get me wrong. When I talk about it being so similar to other shows, is not a remark on its quality at all. If anything, it might be because I really enjoyed those shows I was comparing it to. I really like this show. I really like watching it. It's very fun. But when I think of novel things to say about it, I just keep coming back to remarks I've made about other similar shows. It's not nearly as unique as it is entertaining, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess.
I will say this about this show. I do feel like some things are a little different. Like, I do like the dynamic between some of the characters more than a lot of other shonen. Like the teacher figure, what's his name? Sengoku. He seems a lot different than your typical teacher figure because he kind of doesn't really like the main character that much.
I don't get that impression.
At least not at first. Like he feels a little hostile to him in some ways at first. And it kind of mocks him a bit. But then then they start to grow more, and they do the kind of more typical shonen thing where it's like, oh, okay, they're growing a bond a bit more now. Some of the characters are just really fun. I do really like the whole cucking competition they have, where Tatara takes the guy's sister and the guy takes Shizuku, and they have a whole competition. Episode 9. Like I've only actually watched up to episode 9, but like episode 9 of this show, I would say is like this show's equivalent to episode 10 of My Hero Academia season 2, where it's like just this big build up to this explosive scene where it's just a lot. You kind of
Do they destroy the dance floor with their dancing powers?
No,
I mean,
but
that would be great.
He does make Mako bloom. And it's glorious.
Yeah, it's really basic bitch shit, but this show has a lot of like hype moments that like are just really feel good to watch.
It was it was kind of strange how I was impressed how they managed to adapt a minute-long dance over the course of 15 minutes.
Yeah, that was something.
It's impressive.
But that's also something I kind of hate about this show. Just the amount of gay anime bullshit that happens, where they'll talk about ballroom dancing as if they're talking about like channeling chi or some shit in Dragon Ball. And he's like standing like practicing by himself, and the guy walks by and he sees like some ghost image of Shizuku in his arms, and it's like, oh, you've been dancing with her the whole time. It's like, no, he's not.
It is very silly. But I kind of like that aspect of it.
But like I was going into this like almost hoping it would be like just like a little more like a serious like adult show.
The main character's got like superhuman vision that he's able to assess the movements of whatever he watches and copy them exactly.
I wasn't big on that aspect, and that's kind of what pulled it down for me. But like on the whole, like Matt said, I do like the interactions between the characters. I like the main character and Shizuku's partner who broke his leg and shit. I like their little dynamic so far. And I don't know. It's just a feel good show to watch, I think.
One thing I wish the show would do a little better is more clearly communicate when the main character is not performing so well. Because during the competition at the end of the first core, they make all these allusions to like, his posture wasn't right, or his legs were trembling, or his stance was incorrect, whatever. But the way it looks it looks the same as he always is.
Yeah, they don't convey that in the animation at all.
The animation in the show is not very great, to say the least.
I would disagree with that just a little bit.
Well,
I think the show looks nice, and I think when it wants to look smoothly animated, it can get there. But it almost feels like as the core went on, they reused a lot of footage.
Yeah, there's that shot of him like twirling with that stupid look on his face.
How many fucking times do they use that stupid fucking face of him? That's like the face that you make when you want to like post that copy pasta of like, if I walk in on this dog making this fucking face one more time.
Missed opportunity if no one actually did that with that image.
But yeah, like it does use a lot of stills. It does use a lot of reused animation. Like a lot of the animation is good though. Like there's this one little shot where the what's his face, like the brother, the ponytail fucker, and Shizuka are doing this little dance practicing, and it's really well animated. It's like, wow, I wish the rest of the show looked this good.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have much of a problem with the animation on the whole, but I did notice some. I mean, like, the characters never really go off model.
No,
either,
no. Well,
which,
I mean,
aside from their model just being ridiculous. In the first
Yeah, how
place
come
with
every
the
time I see a
proportions.
screenshot of the show, it looks like the characters look fucking retarded?
it's because they're in. It's during an animated sequence where they pause. You know, where you
Yeah.
pause it at the right time to make a
I-
stupid looking face.
Yeah, but
Like it's obvious. Like it's obvious that they use stuff like techniques like smearing and everything, and it's like, of course, it's gonna look silly like that because it's
Yeah.
in the middle of the shot where they're intentionally making them look like they have a fucking giraffe neck.
right.
But there
and
are
also,
some shots that aren't great looking, where it's like, Jesus Christ, this guy's neck is like a yard long.
No, it's
Um,
it's clear that there's definitely a distinction in the animation between normal scenes and dance scenes.
Yeah,
Where there's definitely different standards for each character design between the two. Like in normal everyday life scenes, they look completely normal. They don't have the giraffe necks, but the second a dance scene starts, the characters all have them. And I think
Right.
that's just like for the sake of animation.
it's stylistically designed to be that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of
Quite
is when you
literally.
think of ballroom dancing, you really do think of like elegantly poised, tall
Right.
figures, and
Right.
Yeah.
they want to exaggerate that aspect.
I don't
There
think
is-
of that at all.
There is a lot of
See, if you don't think
kind
about
of-
ballroom dancing ever,
I mean, I'm fundamentally opposed to the concept of dancing. That's why I didn't watch this show.
oh my god. I mean, I mean, yeah, the whole concept of ballroom dancing is kind of like fetishizing limbs.
look, this is not a condemnation of ballroom dancing, no matter how much Steve wants it to be.
No, I mean,
Not
I
to
still
let this drift that
dancing
way.
in general is stupid. So
Oh my
You're
god.
stupid.
Wow, he hates dancing. Dancing's for normies, dude.
Yeah, Brett.
is that?
Right?
Are you trying to like make that sound positive or?
No, I
I
wasn't.
don't know.
Oh, okay.
Sorry for the ambiguity.
It's okay. But one thing that's mildly annoyed me at the very beginning of the second core, he's like introducing himself in class, and this one random hoe is just like, yeah, ballroom dancing, that's gay, and then just never talks to him again.
I thought that was great.
No. But then she's in like the OP or the ED or whatever, and it's like, oh, well, I guess something's gonna happen.
Right? Yeah, no, that's a reoccurring problem I have with anime, where it's like I don't want to know. I don't want to know that this character is going to be important.
Right.
Like I want to find that out for myself. I don't want to be told that in the fucking opening. That bugs
Exactly.
the shit out of me.
And that's what happened, because I agree that was a good moment, and then it's just like, oh well, never mind. Then she's gonna come up later.
Right. Yeah. It kind of devalues that scene. Now that we talk about it, I don't really have many good things to say about this show.
Even though you called it the best show of the season.
Yeah, that might have been an exaggeration because Made in Abyss was really good too, and I'm not counting Boku no Hero Academia,
No, that was last season.
but it's just I don't even know what I was gonna say anymore. I forgot. I liked it purely because of the topic that it tackled, or not the topic. I don't want to say it
It's
like
very
that.
heavy hitting.
It makes it sound profound. I like it. I like it because of just like the
Subject matter.
subject matter. That's it. That's what I was looking for.
it did something that had not been done before.
It's different, and I enjoy that. And you know, it's definitely pulled off. The animation's pretty good. You know, it looks nice. It's paced well. It's just fun to watch. The conflicts are engaging, and you know, it does everything that it's supposed to do well, which is more than you can see for most anime.
Yeah, and I agree. Like I kind of opened this whole discussion just talking about how similar it was to other shows, but the shows I compared it to, I found to be very just exhilarating at times. If nothing revolutionary, they always delivered the emotions you wanted to feel when you signed up for a sports show, and this one does that as well. It's nothing to reuse a word. It's nothing profound, but it is just solid. It's solid throughout. So
It's no scorching ping pong girls, huh?
no, it's not. If you want a sports show that is really gonna just fucking get you there,
Why the
then-
fuck do you have to bring that up, Frank?
then Scorching
But-
Ping Pong Girls is the one. But otherwise,
one of these days, Scorching Ping Pong Girls is gonna somehow make its way onto Funk's favorites.
it's like right there. I just think of all that sweat that was thrown around. Damn, girl. But this show is definitely worth checking out if anybody hasn't watched it. Even if you have prejudice against dancing, I think. Because Steve, given how much you liked Haikyuu, I think you would really like this show.
How do you figure?
They're exactly the same. They're exactly the same show. That's
See,
how
but
They
like,
are
you
very
can-
similar.
See, you can say that about any sports anime, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna watch every sports anime.
That's true. I'm just saying, but if you did have the time to watch every sports anime, I think you would like them more often than not.
But I also feel like I think they would all be inferior to Haikyuu. Because that is just
What?
like the best of the best.
I would just say that's because you watched that first.
I mean, because I started with the best. There's nowhere else to go but down.
Well, it's the best because you started with it.
No, it's not. It's the best because it's the best.
You know,
Yeah, I'm sure.
only gay people like Haikyuu.
Wow.
Um,
You knew Steve was gay.
I remember at TGS there was a very long line. Oh no, that was Kuroko's
No, that was
basketball.
Basket. Yeah.
That was Kuroko's
And they were
basketball.
all
But
women.
the audience is the same.
No, it's not. That is a Fujo show. Haikyuu is a show for both genders.
No, the audience is the same. The audience, the audience.
Listen, it's
Reality
just like
is the same.
Osamatsu.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Don't
Well,
let
in that
them
case,
fool you.
yeah, they pandered to that
Was
audience.
there
but-
an episode of Haikyuu where every one of the principal characters was actually a girl for that episode?
No, not yet.
There also wasn't an episode where they all covered each other with oil.
Yeah, that too.
All right, moving on. You guys have anything else to say about ballroom dancing?
Nope.
I'll say no one's checked my toe yet.
Oh.
We'll keep it that way.
Oh my god.
All right. So next up, so we tend to throw around the word trash a lot here on the Luckycast,
Don't you dare.
but this show might take the cake. So Frank,
What's up?
tell us about NTR.
Oh man, well, to call it NTR is almost a little disingenuous because I wouldn't even necessarily go so far as to call it that.
But
Because
that's what it says on the title screen.
I realize that, but it's not really a cucking show, as so much as it is just a schlocky show about these two girls kissing behind their boyfriend's back, and one of them knows about it and tries to rope them into like a three-way. It's
That sounds like cucking to me.
I mean, it's weird because it feels almost like a soap opera in terms of its execution. Like, you have all of these awful tropes that are just being thrown around where, you have the one main girl who's kind of just oblivious. It's like, oh man, my predatory lesbian friend keeps coming on to me, like, behind the bushes and in the bathroom stalls and shit like that.
What
but,
does she mean by this?
What
Yeah,
did she
right?
mean by this when she literally tried to rape me?
Yeah, it's like, but this is just practice, right? And like later she's shocked when she hears these rumors that like she's cheating on her boyfriend. It's like, who could she be cheating on her boyfriend with? Can't possibly be me, right? Like, she's so oblivious. Then you have the other one who just takes every opportunity to just be, predatory, and at the same time it's like, oh man, she's kind of tragic because her boyfriend, beats her, I guess. Like she comes in with a black eye and it's like, oh man, how'd you get that? It's like, oh man, I wonder. You have the other guy who's even more oblivious, like literally the Sua of this show, if you want to talk about like in terms of like orange. Like, he's I guess if anyone's getting cocked in the show, it's really him. Because he's just he doesn't deserve any of this shit. And then you have the other guy who's literally just there to cause like, an antagonistic relationship by sort of blackmailing her into being like, oh, I know that you're cheating on me, but I'm also cheating on you, but you don't know that. But I'm gonna use this as leverage so that, we can maybe have a threesome or something like that. Like it's rough to watch, and you compare it to other shows that tackle like this like girls kissing girls content, like let's say Sakura Trick, which is a very like innocent sort of show. It has this sort of just casual feel about it. It's like, oh man, we're two girls and we're smooching and we're just being very casual about it, And then you have this, which is just raw and intense, but like there's nothing about it that's entertaining. And I would say if it wasn't for the fact that all of the episodes are like 8 minutes long, I would definitely have dropped it. But they're just the right amount of length, and the episodes end on just the right note to make you be like, what the fuck kind of wacky shit's gonna happen next week?
It's worth noting that as bad as the show is, everyone who watched it finished it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it has a way of stringing you along.
Everyone here who watched it is a fucking fetishist.
I mean,
girl fetishist?
NTR fetishist.
It's very
Not
low.
me.
No,
I
no.
object to that.
This was a very half-assed NTR.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
can't
let's
NTR
get the
with
expert's
another girl.
opinion here.
You cannot NTR a guy with another girl.
I mean, but the crux of the show isn't the NTR. The crux of the show is the lesbian relationship, right?
But it brands
But it's
itself
called
as NTR.
NTR.
So that's
I know
why
that.
Frank is introducing this.
Yeah.
Well, he also
Yeah,
really wanted to talk about it, so.
I mean, I just
think
want
we know why.
schlock. Like, I mean,
Schlock.
yeah, it's girls kissing girls, but this is all wrong.
But Frank, that's forbidden now.
This is the wrong way to go about girls kissing girls. But that's
the wrong.
See, but that's the thing. Like, Frank, it's not even attempting to be anything more than what it is,
Right.
which is why it's almost passable in the state that it is.
Hmm.
Like, that's how you can get through this show.
No,
This
and
is. We've said this before, but never has it been more appropriate. It's trash, and it knows it's trash.
Yeah, of course it does. And even in the kissing scenes, it's like you get the right amount of mist, so it's like, oh man, please buy our Blu-rays so you can see the uncensored version of these two girls kissing. Like it knows what it's about, and I'm like, it knows its angle, and it puts in the bare minimum amount of effort to get you invested in these two girls and their ridiculous relationship and their love quadrangle, I guess, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's just.
I think that's a square, Frank.
That said, for as much as I hate to like actually nitpick this show, it does have a very major flaw in just how much of a merry-go-round it is of these two girls like gesturing with their feelings. Like, does she really like me? No,
right.
She doesn't like me. Does she really like me? No, she doesn't like me.
It's in the case of the main girl, Yuma, I believe her name is, just being a fucking oblivious twat. Like,
well,
It's-
yeah,
no.
but even after she catches on, you have Hotaru who like comes on to her and then pretends not to have feelings for her. It's just
Right.
back and forth. It never ends. Like, even in the last episode, like
Right.
they go through that 3 different times.
Can we
Yeah,
talk
it's
about how
con-
Hotaru is the biggest piece of shit ever?
No, no,
Because she's exactly the kind of girl that DL likes.
The worst thing about this show is how it pretends like the main character is a good person.
I mean, she's not. No, she's not.
She is the biggest piece of shit in the whole show, and it tries so hard to make you think she's not. Everything is her fault. It's all
I
her
don't
fault.
think the show is really taking a viewpoint on it. I think it's just presenting it as is.
I don't know.
Like there's no attempt to make anything the characters do like redeemable or to put you on their side. It's just presenting it as is.
The only good
because
character
it's
in the
shock.
show is her boyfriend, or at least the only good person in the show is the guy getting cucked who has no idea
Yeah,
what's going
and
on.
like I didn't like his character because that was like too real.
I did like. I was surprised how he just straight up drops her though. Like, I was like, holy shit, this guy's not like an idiot.
Yeah, but then after that he goes back to her and starts talking to her, and he's like, oh god, I don't know. Kind of makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Like, it's obvious he still wants to be with her. It's just that he doesn't trust her.
But at the same time, it's also girl on girl, so it doesn't really matter, does it? It's not really. It's not really. It doesn't. There's nothing of consequence here.
Like, what would actually happen if he found out that he was being cheated, that she was cheating on him with another girl? Like would he really be that mad?
I'm pretty sure in the manga he just gets over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the show tries to portray him as actually caring about that kind of thing, but I mean, in real life, if that happened, like, what the fuck would you think? You'd be like, okay, all right, whatever, you roll that way.
Yeah, I'd be like, well, that's kind of hot.
Can I watch? Like, I'm also curious as to like what the justification is for that the nice guy hanging out with the guy who's just a complete asshole to everyone.
Right.
And like, I mean, throughout the show, the asshole guy has no redeeming qualities at all.
Oh,
whereas
no,
the other guy is just shown to be like, this just like amazingly nice person.
But I don't think he has moral objections to what the other guy does. It's just like they're both guys. I just saw their relationship as that, and he just like they're friends, so he just doesn't really have a negative opinion of what the other guy's doing.
Yeah, I guess so.
No, exactly. He probably doesn't know the fact that he's also beating his girlfriend. So.
Yeah, but who cares?
Also, the other guy is hot. He's portrayed as like the hottest guy in school too. So that's probably also why nobody like really questions him.
I think he's questioning
that's just how high school is.
Became friends to begin with, though. Like, like what are the details of?
Well, they're both on the basketball team.
Right, but like.
Yeah, but does that really matter?
I guess not, but it was something I was left wondering, just because. I don't know. They just don't seem like characters who would be like get along. They just don't seem like they would get along. I don't know. And it's a stupid nitpick to have with the show because it really doesn't matter. But I don't know. It was just something that kind of crossed my mind.
It's just a shitty, schlocky, fucking soap opera.
It's just another reminder of just how lazy the show is.
Like you could replace this with a bunch of you can replace this with like a bunch of Hispanic people just speaking, just like yelling in Spanish.
Holy shit!
And that's what this is.
Have it running at 48 frames per second.
Someone post this on poll.
It's there. You go. You have that. You have that image. Like that. Like I just said, like you just expect this. Like that woman from that image that says like screaming in Spanish on it from that soap opera to just run in at any moment.
That said, the show still had the most Kino ending of any show this season, where it actually connected to the scenes in the opening.
Oh yeah,
even though it was just completely lazy and just reusing scenes straight up. Yeah. I kind of like that.
Yeah, that was interesting, kind of. I don't know. I think the first thing about the show that jumped out at me, like from episode 1, also was how shitty the animation is.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that they put no effort into it.
It looks.
And yeah,
terrible.
It wasn't even the worst looking show this season.
It wasn't.
No, we'll talk about it.
All right. Oh.
Bravo, Lucas.
But I mean, still, for a traditional looking show, it looked fucking terrible.
Yeah, it was barely animated.
It was made by creators in Pack, most famously known for the ever so acclaimed Oji-san to Marshmallow.
Oh no! God. It felt a lot like an ad for the manga.
Like, more so than a traditional anime.
Yeah, kinda. Just because of how little effort was put into it, and like just how it was given to us. It's a short, shitty little anime with a bunch of scenes that don't really connect to each other that well. It's pretty bad.
There's a lot of end title art contributed to the show.
There was, yeah. It was good too.
It was very good.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is one of those shows that I don't know. It's like you're never gonna be a Japanese high school girl. You're never gonna kiss other girls.
So, would you say that the show cucked you out of a great anime?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think I would. I don't think I would say that. Why would you say that?
Well, I was just thinking, I was trying to flex my hackneyed.
If you're ever like in need of a show to watch, Funk, you can check this out.
Yeah,
we'd all recommend it.
It's pretty good. I mean, honestly, I didn't really. All other things aside, I didn't really mind the girl on girl stuff in this show. It was kind of heartwarming.
I mean, you can watch it.
It was something warming.
Steve going for the more subtle route.
Like I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as the smut that it was.
We know you enjoyed it.
This is I mean, it's
no, I
literally
mean like I really enjoyed it.
Right.
It's
this is
literally
Frank. This is Frank Core.
It's not Frank Core.
This show is literally
I haven't
two
watched
steps
this
away
show.
from just being a straight up hentai. So
Or from the way you guys describe it, it sounds like fucking Scum's Wish, but with less competency.
How is that Frank?
You're not wrong.
Did Steve just say you're not wrong, and Frank just say how is that correct?
How is that Frank Core?
Oh, Frank.
It has
There's two girls kissing.
I realize that, but just because there are two girls kissing doesn't mean it's Frank Core.
let's go on Frank's mal and
all right,
see how many
two girls
kissing
in a fucking
shows
murder
he's added
game.
to his mal over the past few months.
No,
No.
a show's only Frank Core if Funk denies that the girls are in a relationship.
Exactly. Thank you.
They're just good friends.
Well, in
Did we-
this case, they were not.
Did we include New Game on that list?
Frank Core?
Do you find the relationship between Ko and what's her name? Do you
Alba?
find that no, not Alba. Her what's her name? Ko's,
Oh,
gay
the other
partner.
older girl.
Yeah. Are they just good friends?
Yes.
There you go.
No, they're not.
I mean,
They might be great friends,
Oh.
but that's about it.
I mean, Frank and I actually had a discussion about that, of like whether there was an actual confession scene in that last episode or not.
I think it counted.
I know you do. I know you think that it counted. I don't know to what scene you're referring, but I know that you think that way.
In the
When she was drunk and basically confessed to her.
She did not confess to her.
she pretty much did.
Oh my god.
She basically said, "I want to be by your side forever."
Yes, because they're friends.
Oh my god.
So, whenever you've been going out with DL in Japan and getting drunk, Funk, did you ever say anything like that to him?
I'm sure I did. I know I called Andre and told him as much. Yeah, you remember that, right?
I remember that, yeah.
That's the kind of grandiose statement you make whilst drunk. It just happens.
Yeah, but sometimes you say that when you're drunk, and sometimes you say that because the drunkenness lets your true feelings out.
Right.
Well, yeah, your true feelings of friendship.
Well, I feel like we've all learned a little bit about NTR today.
Then again, maybe women are incapable of being friends.
Well, they're incapable of everything else, so.
Hi-oh.
That was a we want the DL audience joke.
Yeah, you really baited me with that one.
It wasn't bait.
Speaking of we want the DL audience, time to go off script. DL, tell me about your experience with Hajimete no Gal.
Was she really a slut?
She wasn't really a slut.
Oh my.
This show in concept was tailor made for me. It was.
Me too, actually.
It was. Oh, okay. Really? Are you a fan of gals?
You know it. Did you not? Oh, I guess you weren't there when I fucking gave like Galco like number 3 anime.
Oh,
of the year
that's
last
right.
year.
That's right. But she wasn't a slut either.
No, but she was still a gal, and she was great.
All right. So at least we can agree on that. Gals are great. And in concept, I should have loved this show. But you know, why the fuck would that ever happen?
Why would good things ever happen?
Because by episode 2, you already know she's not a slut, and that's it. That the show's just done there.
But that can't be your biggest gripe about the show.
Well, no. You know, as it goes on, I think episode 5, there's a scene where like the tiny girl with big boobs comes by, and you know they're all sitting on a bench, and they notice how big her tits are, and they all kneel down and start pressing their tits up against each other for about. Like
I can't tell if you're joking or not.
No, this is an actual scene.
And you know they're giggling while they're doing it, and it's just like a minute scene of them just like pressing their tits up against each other and laughing, and that's when I knew the show was like just far gone. I was like, this is it, huh? And from that, I don't know, like even before that point, but that was the point where I was like, all right, I really see what this show is. Now, as I understand it, this deviates a lot from the manga.
Boy, does it.
I read a couple of chapters, maybe the first 10 of the manga. I didn't really have that much time. I wanted to catch up, but I didn't have the time. And I'm already seeing...
You read like the first 10 chapters?
Yeah.
So you got to the point where they kissed, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm already seeing where that...
You notice how all that stuff was not in the anime?
Yeah, well, okay, so the part where they kiss was in the anime, but it was the last episode.
And it's totally different.
It's totally different. And like her attitude towards him is completely different.
Yep.
She goes from being very... What's the word? She goes from teasing him and being a very stereotypical gal type character to very quickly becoming like a dairy type character who's constantly seeking validation from him in a very weak, typical anime girl kind of way. Which I don't know does that happen in the manga?
I'm only at like chapter 17, but it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
Like everything in the manga feels like they're building like a real relationship between these two characters, whereas the anime is just a wacky harem comedy.
Yeah,
that shifts the focus entirely to all the other characters except them.
Yeah, and I mean, in the manga, she feels very much like it feels very much like she's in control of the relationship the whole time.
Yeah.
Whereas the anime, going its pandering fucking piece of shit route, completely flips their relationship, and she stops being as in control of that relationship, and it's probably some kind of wish fulfillment thing, and it becomes a harem for no real reason. All these characters start to like the main character, you know. For this is the first harem show I've watched in a long time, and
well, he's above that now.
Well, the thing is, when they introduced all those girls, their whole deal was that they didn't really like him.
Right.
They all had reasons why they didn't, but then they just end up completely flipping that.
They suddenly like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really stupid. And then like most single core anime series that deviate from the source material, the show ends with like a 2-episode little arc.
The dramatic arc.
Yeah, where there's suddenly a conflict.
Which was horribly handled.
Yeah. Did you watch the whole thing?
I did, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy just suddenly shows up, and the main character decides to be jealous about it. I think that was taking cues from like one of the earliest chapters, and actually like made something of it. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure, but
the thing is, like, I get that insecurity actually makes a lot of sense
when
it comes to this guy who's dating someone way out of his league.
Oh, absolutely.
They just handle it in the worst possible way.
That's definitely something that could have been done well. But then it gets to the second part, and they're all in a family restaurant, and the guy shows up with his friends, and the main character gets his ass kicked, but is then rescued by one of the gals and his nerd friends, who proceed to beat up all of the bad guys.
The pedo guy turns into the Hulk and saves them all.
Yep.
I'm not joking, that actually happens.
Yep. It's the most wish fulfillment shit I have ever seen in an anime. I'm not shitting you.
So in that last episode, the antagonist accidentally does something that, like, he like runs into a little girl who just shows up out of nowhere, and then the pedo guy turns into the Hulk and beats
Oh,
him up
no.
because of it.
Oh
It's
no!
it's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane.
I'm glad to hear that the guy who literally had charted out the homes of all the children in the Tri-County area decided to give him, of all people, a redemption arc.
And
Yeah,
if I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that whole aspect of his character, of him being a pedophile, is like one joke in the manga that they turn into that running gag in the anime.
Yeah, I was gonna say the
And
same thing. Yeah.
And you would think at some point they would stop it because it's never funny, but they just keep doubling down on it. And and the worst part is sometimes the other friends, like, they chastise him because of it. Like, they don't want to be associated with him because he's gonna get arrested someday. But then you have one episode where the glasses guy, where they're all getting like part-time jobs. He makes the pedo guy work at a fucking daycare. Like, you're just enabling him.
Yeah, and I really hate to say this, but it feels creepy at times.
Yeah, it like I said this in the last podcast, is the like, there's a point where you stop being a lolicon and you start being a pedophile, and this show crosses that line.
Yeah, it's very, I don't know, it's really uncomfortable for some reason.
It's always played for gags. It's not like I'm offended by it. It's just
Right.
not funny.
It's just not funny.
Japan's really
And-
weird. Super icky.
No. No, there's ways to do that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's like
hilarious.
I hate to be Cullen, whereas like I'm agreeing with the people who say like anime is for pedophiles and stuff like that.
No, yeah.
When you have a show like this where, god damn it, it's doing its hardest to prove you right.
It definitely feels like it's pandering to that kind of person. Like, it's saying like, oh, you're that kind of guy. It's okay. Here's a guy just like you. Laugh. I mean, there's a scene in the Welcome to the NHK novel that I don't believe ever made it into the anime, where the main character and the guy who lives next door decide to make an H game. And I think it was the guy who lived next door who wanted to include an underage character in the game. And so this is like right around the turn of the century, like child porn had just been banned in Japan. So they go on the internet and they start looking up all these like nearly pornographic images of kids, and the main character's like, what the fuck? And they end up going to like a daycare and taking pictures, like hiding in the bushes and taking pictures of little girls. And just the absurdity of that is hilarious. And like, in that way, that kind of thing is funny. But like here, it's just like, it's weird. Because like, you know what they're trying to do. And it just feels gross. I don't know.
See, he knows all the areas of the children in the area just like you.
Yeah.
He knows where all the kids live, just
Right,
like you
right.
do.
Right. It's just not funny. But yeah, I with a topic like this where you have a character a main character who clearly like hates himself, has very low self-worth, is a total nerd, and he's going out with this gal who's like very self-confident. And you see beats of this in the story where there's points where he should be developing as a character and realizing that he's a terrible person.
Mm-hmm.
And he almost does, and then the anime falls back into like, it kind of regresses to make sure the audience doesn't like get put out of its comfort zone, where like he doesn't really have to deal with the fact that he's insecure,
Yeah.
that he's a big piece of shit, or that he like has no motivation to do anything. I feel like this is a story, like it could have been a good vehicle for character development. It could have been a nice story in that way. And then
That's what, like, for what I've read of the manga, and it could go off the rails for all I know, because I'm only like halfway through how many chapters they have, but like that's exactly what the manga feels like. Like it is a legitimately good story, and accurately captures what it feels like to date at that age, and to be insecure and dating someone out of your league who also on her end also doesn't really have any experience and is feeling the kind of exact same thing as he is,
Right.
but just goes about it a different way.
Right.
And like there are occasional glimpses of that in the anime, which is what I enjoyed about it. It was ultimately saved it somewhat for me, but not nearly enough. Not to mention, like, this was the worst looking show this season. Like, it completely deteriorates in quality towards the end.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught that shot at the beach, DL, where it's just of her laying down on the blanket, and it's the shot of her from behind, and it's a very quick shot, but of her legs are like like fat people legs.
Are they like tree trunks?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I don't remember that at all.
Oh God.
Legs.
It's like someone who clearly they handed that scene to someone who clearly didn't know how to draw anatomy, so they just drew like fat rolls on her legs
That's
and stuff.
disgusting. Oh my god.
Oh God.
Um,
Like almost every shot of characters' faces were like off model, even of the main girl who you would think they would make sure that would never happen to.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
the main character looked ridiculous a lot of the time too. And not in like a way that he's supposed to look ridiculous, but just looked like stupid and off model.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched the censored version.
No, I watched the uncensored version.
I
Is barely there was barely a reason for it.
there was no reason to censor it, which is why I thoroughly enjoyed the censorship because they were very creative with it. Every little censored scene was different, and it had little voices, and it was great. They'd have hands covering up places that would they drag across the screen, and it was just wonderful. And like I knew underneath it there was nothing to see, so I wasn't like, oh, I'm missing something. So that was nice, and I really enjoyed the main character Seiyu, Asanuma something. I thought his delivery on stuff was really good. When he's being the straight man, he delivers some really good lines. So that was something I enjoyed about the show.
The voice acting of his friends though was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know if you really noticed that, but yeah. I want to see. I do genuinely feel like this show's a disappointment because a lot of people would not look at it and have expectations, but I did.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
so did I.
It fell short.
And like I honestly I expected very little. I just wanted it to be some smutty shit, and it wasn't even that. It was just like pure, just generic anime shit. It was really disappointing. But on the bright side, I will be checking out the manga, which is nice sometimes. You know, sometimes you get these shitty shows that make you check out the source material, and the source material actually ends up being pretty good. So.
Yeah,
you know?
Like there's not. I mean, I don't read much manga, but like when you get a show like this where you can see where there is promise that was probably taken out.
Yeah,
you can see the all the areas they cut. It's like, well, I have to know, so that's why I went and read the manga even before the last podcast just to make sure. And yeah, it is the manga is absolutely worth checking out. I'm not gonna say it's great or anything, but I've been really enjoying it from what I've read.
Yeah, it's definitely something I'll be reading more of.
All right, we're gonna take another break here, and then we'll be right back.
Good.
All right, welcome back once again to the Luckycast. So DL, since you're the only one who finished it, tell us about the reflection. Well, I guess it's not technically finished, is it?
It's not finished.
God damn it!
But wow, it's finally my time to shine. Who here watched and dropped the reflection?
I did.
I didn't even touch it.
Really, no one. Besides
I did
Steve.
I did not touch it.
Well, I mean, like the first episode was so bad that I warned everyone else off of it.
Oh.
Like I actually did talk about it on the mid-season podcast how fucking awful that first episode was.
It was really bad. So the reflection. Wait, you talked about it on the last podcast?
Yeah, but only the first episode.
All right. So I mean, you get the general premise. Then it's a show about people who gained these powers by getting hit with a random beam of light and or inhaling some smoke cloud that covered the world for
I don't
about
think that
3
was
seconds.
really established well in the first episode. Like they just showed up and they were fighting, and they didn't explain anything.
Yeah. So it opens up with an episode where there's like maybe like 3 lines of dialogue. And the rest of it is just this really long, extended, shitty fight scene with like the worst animation you could ever imagine. It's got this really ugly, blocky, like shitty looking art style. It looks like someone applied a filter over an NES game. And for some reason, they decided to reuse all of that in the second episode, but with more dialogue. So basically, you could just skip the first episode. It's really just fucking poorly paced. And I probably should have known that at that point, because it never gets better in terms of just like how it portrays its plot. It's basically just a bunch of jumbled fucking scenes that make very little tentative sense and then don't really culminate in anything. Like I've never watched a show where I've spent 12 episodes with characters and cared so little about them.
Oh, jeez. But what about Stan Lee?
So Stan Lee is actually an evil guy in this show, and he has a lot of screen time.
Holy shit.
They don't really...
Is it all voiced by the real Stan Lee?
Yeah. I didn't know Stan Lee was fluent in Japanese. But yeah, it's all voiced by Stan Lee in Japanese. And his name is Mr. Mystic.
Are you being a shit ass right now?
Yeah, I'm being a shit ass.
No, he's 100% serious.
Because I know the real Stan Lee, he does like the episode previews, right?
He does the episode previews. He's like, next on The Reflection, Excelsior.
That is the worst Stan Lee ever.
So his character's name is Mr. Mystic, and I'm nearly done with the show, and I still don't know what his deal is. They don't really explain much. They don't really explain anything.
Does he have the same voice actor as the not Stan Lee from Hero Man?
No, I checked that immediately, and he doesn't. Which is really unfortunate. So basically, the entire show is this apparently really famous hero, which you wouldn't know he's really famous because there's no scene establishing that. This really famous hero goes on a road trip across the country with this girl who has teleportation powers, but lives in some shitty apartment in New York and doesn't really do anything. They go on a road trip across the country to save all of these women with the same last name who were being captured by some evil organization. And along the way, they meet a girl in a wheelchair who can transform her wheelchair into a giant toy robot. They meet a black guy. They meet a man who has some kind of powers that I forget. But he got hit by the light, but his wife got hit by the black mist or whatever, so she becomes a monster. And she's like this huge giant thing with black armor, and at some point she becomes human again. Only to inexplicably become a monster again, like 5 minutes later. And she goes through various stages of becoming human and becoming a monster again. And there's no reason for it. There's no explanation for it. We're just kind of forced to sit there and accept it. Despite there being some kind of like little drama between these two characters. It's really difficult to even explain, to even start to explain, like, why the show is so bad. It defies all logic of storytelling. Because, like, at no point do you care what's happening. It's just, like, thing A happens. Villain shows up. They beat the villain. They go to a new city, and they start over again. And apparently this is all supposed to culminate in something. I think in the last episode they teleported all of these people with powers to the desert of New Mexico and then had a showdown with U.S. government helicopters. It was fucking stupid.
It sounds so dumb.
It was really dumb. It's just all really ham-fisted. there's a scene where the main character. I made a specific note about this. There's a scene where the main character's in a restaurant and she has a burger on her plate, and she reaches into the burger just with one hand, pulls out the tomato slice, and eats it, which really offended me. What else about this show? I felt like the creative lineup was a little weird. I think I mentioned this in the CT, but as everyone knows, Stan Lee is the original creator, right? But then you got Trevor Horn, who is some famous Jew who no one knows about, who does music for a lot of things. He's apparently very well known, and he does the music in this, and the music's actually pretty good. Yeah, all right. The music is probably like the one thing in the show that's actually pretty decent. They also have 9, the idol group. It's written with the numeral 9, and then NINE, but it's just pronounced 9.
Because of course it's a stupid idol group. They have that stupid fucking name.
But they're actually famous. They're actually really well known, and I was kind of shocked that a 9 song was the ending theme to this show. It's actually really catchy. I enjoy it a lot, but it doesn't really fit with the show at all. The show is like this superhero show set in America. The opening is a no lyric, very like American comic book style theme song, and then it ends with this poppy, shitty like little like J-pop thing. And come to find out, all 4 of the idols in 9 voice these characters, who are Japanese high school girls in this show. And the show really awkwardly cuts to these Japan scenes of these girls who also, for some reason, have powers, even though they never show what they are. And it kind of makes me think that at some point during production, someone on the production committee was like, we really need to shill 9. How do we do this? And they just threw these characters in as like a last, because they're not connected to the plot at all. They just threw them in as like this last minute, like, okay, here's your advertising, and they threw a song at the end, and it's really 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 fucking weird, and they're terrible actresses, and like you can tell just the difference in like tonal quality between like actual voice actors and these idols when the scenes switch, and it's stupid. And yeah, that's it. That's basically all I have on this show. I really can't explain why it's so dumb. It's just really dumb.
Would you say it's well deserving of the sub 5 it has on Mel?
Yeah, definitely. I really wanted to enjoy it too, because it felt really different, and it's funny just in concept, the fact that this is even a thing. But it's just terrible. It's just terrible. I wish more people had watched it so they could commiserate with me, because I cannot describe what the fuck even happened in the show.
Yeah, there was no way I could get past that first episode. It was so bad.
It was really bad. It just feels soulless.
I just like to picture Stan Lee bumbling around Japanese animation producers and executives as he makes these deals happen with Hero Man and The Reflection and whatnot. And he's like ancient, so he's just like, what the fuck's Japan? You want me to say what? He's in the booth, and there's like Japanese technician on the outside, just like giving him an awkward thumbs up, trying to communicate what the fuck he wants to say. And Stan Lee just leaves feeling really satisfied for the day, having bridged cultures.
Yeah.
Oh, so Steve.
Hello?
Interesting thing. You want to know who directed this?
Yes? Question
The
mark?
guy who's directing this show is the same guy who directed your favorite show, Aku no Hana.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. I thought you knew that, Steve.
No, I didn't. I mean,
Yeah. That explains a lot about its
yeah, about everything.
stylistic choices. It looks really really bad when when things are close up, it's almost passable. You could almost say like, oh, that's just the style. But when you have these characters that are, it's like a wide shot of a bunch of characters or something, they're just blobs.
Yeah, I think I described it in the last podcast as like this is like someone's college animation project.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It's really dumb. It's really bad.
I mean, I've only seen thumbnails of it, and it literally looks like something that somebody uploaded to Newgrounds.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, and then awkward CGI kicks in sometimes. Oh God, I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, I just really wanted this to be good.
I mean, I wanted this to be the next Hero Man, but that's not gonna happen.
Nothing's ever gonna be Hero Man.
No,
Thank
and
God.
it depresses me.
Hero Man was really good.
Did you know Hero Man was in like a Super Robot Wars game?
Seriously?
Yeah, and they had like MIDI versions of the opening theme.
That's awesome. That's great.
Rip Hero Man.
Yeah, Hero Man didn't do nothing.
Okay, Matt. You
Yes.
wanted to talk about this, so tell us
Oh.
how gamers ended up.
It's time for me to shit on gamers. God damn. Okay. So here's the thing. So when I first noticed this show, like, being a thing this season, I was just like, okay, so this is probably, like, I noticed that, I looked at the tags, it's like, okay, comedy, romance, slice of life. Okay, so it's probably just gonna be, like, some dumb show about a group of kids in high school who join a video game club, and then maybe two of the characters, like one, you got a girl and a boy, and they just kind of fall in love. Like, I don't know, something just kind of dumb and maybe fun. I don't know, like maybe even something Genshiken-esque, where it's like, oh, this is like what. Look at these gamers being video gamers. Like kind of how
that was really optimistic of you.
Yeah, it was. It was very optimistic of me, because what the show turned out to be was a clusterfuck of a love triangle situation. Not even a love triangle, more like almost like a love pentagon between the stupidest cast of characters you'll ever see, with the most Reddit humor you will ever witness. So, like, first off, so here's the first sin the show commits in the very first episode, and that is having a completely out of nowhere, for no reason, not even foreshadowed or like earlier on, like implied on. It just happens. A thing happens. The girl starts, like, basically the boy rejects the girl to join her club, this video game club. She starts crying, she runs off, and oh, there's a banana peel on the ground, and she slips on it. And it's just a thing, and it's like, okay, why? Why? I don't know, who cares? Move on. And then the show just devolves, like, basically it starts off with this like fucking wet blanket of an MC like kind of meeting Chad, and Chad for whatever reason gets really motivated to get him to ask out this girl. Tendo-san is her name, which always reminds me of chicken tenders. But so you got Tendo, who's like the most popular girl in school, and of course, it just has to always be the most popular girl in school, who is also super into video games to the point where she has fucking arcade cabinets in her goddamn room, because this is what video gamers do, apparently. But so it goes into Chad trying to get this MC in a relationship with this girl. And then they introduce the other girl, Seaweed Head, who, after she gets a haircut, suddenly also turns into the hottest girl in school. and he and like the MC and her don't get along because the MC likes Moe and Seaweed Head doesn't. So that's like the reason why they don't like each other and get into arguments all the time.
I mean, anyone can relate to that.
I mean, that is true. I mean, the MC does pull out one of the most red-pilled lines of the show, where he says something like, "Haven't you ever played a Western game and think, man, wouldn't it be great if the girl in this game were cute?" Which I have a feeling this is what Japanese people just generally feel about a lot of Western games. But
they're not wrong.
Horizon Zero Dawn. But the show just, like, what happens is the show just devolves into this thing where, for whatever reason, because every character makes these horribly stupid assumptions about one another. Like, everybody thinks another character is cheating on another. Like, Chad thinks his girlfriend is cheating on him with the MC. The MC thinks that that Chad's girlfriend is cheating on, or I don't even remember because of how much of a clusterfuck it is. All I know is that everybody makes these assumptions about who is really in love with who, and it just becomes a clusterfuck of stupid bullshit where it's like, if these people were actual human beings and actually talked to one another like how people talk to each other, none of this would happen, and they would just talk to each other and say, "Hey, like, what's going on with you and this guy? Like, are you just, like, friends now or something?" Like, if they just discuss things, like how a human does things,
But Matt, then 90% of romance anime wouldn't exist.
That is true. That is very true. This is, like, and the worst part is that it would kind of be funny if it weren't for the fact that it's just so frustrating. Because you know that none of this is happening, and they're just making these assumptions, and it's like, this is just stupid. Like, they're deliberately making these characters retarded for the sake of comedy, and it's like, that's not how it works. Like, you don't have a character like, say, Chad in this show, who is a completely reasonable person in the first few episodes, but then he just turns into this, like, crazy laughing guy who makes silly faces.
Can we just pause for a moment?
What?
There's a guy named Chad in that anime?
No.
Yeah, his name is Chad Shadan.
Yes, Chad Shadan. I'm talking about the... What's his fucking name? Uhara.
I don't even know why I even bothered, because I don't remember, like, shit about that shit, because it was just awful, but...
I'm just referring to him as Chad, because that's just what he is. He's just the Chad.
I thought his name was actually Chad. I was like,
no,
huh?
I mean, it might as well be. Okay, I'll start using his actual name now. Like, they make Uhara just look stupid. They make his girlfriend Argri look stupid. Like, every character just gets stupid for the sake of comedy, and that just lasts for the entire show. That's all that the whole entire show is. The show completely forgets that it has anything to do with video games until the very last episode, after everything was resolved. And they decide to just go, and the last episode is them just going on like a trip to Hot Springs with just bringing video games along. And the entire episode is basically like the normie girl, the pink hair girl, Agri, just shitting on video games the entire time. Like it's basically her just saying, aren't video games like really expensive for what they are? Like, she's like they like compare video games to clothing, and she's like, yeah, but what clothing has an actual like purpose and stuff. And it's like, this is a show called Gamers that is just now actively shitting on video games. Like, there's something seriously wrong here.
And yet you finished it.
And yet I finished it. And then I mean, it does like, there is a little bit of funny stuff in there, like when they start going to how like shitty some DLC practices are and stuff. So it's like, okay, at least it's clear that they actually know something about video games here, because all this is true. And then it just culminates with her saying, with her saying games are shit as like her final thoughts on games, I guess. I don't know. It's all supposed to be played for laughs. It just feels almost like, you know what it feels like? It feels like Reddit created an anime that was attempting to appeal to 4chan and fails miserably at it. It's like this really does feel like Reddit donning a what's that guy's name? Donning one of those fucking like V for Vendetta masks, going on V and saying, "Hello there, fellow Anons." Like, that's what this show is. It's really bad. It's not funny. The characters are awful. The romance is cliched and practically non-existent. Everything, like, it's just one of those obnoxious, annoying, shithead MC falls in love with the most popular girl in school. She falls in love with him with stupid reasons and love triangle bullshit. It's just bad. It's really, really bad. And it looks like shit, too.
Yeah, I like at the start of the season, I wanted to hate watch this show all the way through, but even I couldn't get past episode 2.
It's just not good.
Even Kenny dropped it, and he doesn't drop anything.
Even Kenny
dropped it. I dropped it like episode 9. I made it pretty far, but then I was just like, no. Yeah. Episode 10 was enough for me. I just stopped about a couple minutes into it. I was like, fuck this. So
sounds like you made the right call, Kenny.
The right call, a little too late. I could have been watching other shit. Other garbage.
Like NTR.
Yeah, which I still have only watched like 2 episodes though. Sorry I wasn't able to finish before the podcast.
That's okay, we already talked about it.
Not to mention I'm 3 hours late. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Also, I just looked down at the fucking discussion section of the Gamers Mal page, and I just see, this is like the perfect example of the kind of shitty people this appeals to. Because you go down to like the title discussion page. One of the very first threads on Mal is, "Why did you start gaming?"
Us gamers, right?
Us gamers.
Alright, so, yeah, gamers was shit, but we can talk about a good anime instead. And I know it's good because it was the one I recommended on the mid-season podcast.
Oh, kill yourself.
Okay, let's talk about Princess Principal. Princess Principal is the show I recommended, and for as much as I enjoyed it at the start when I recommended it, I probably enjoyed it about the equal amount when it got to the end. Like, it was a very consistent show.
What an odd fucking sentence. For as much as I enjoyed it at the start, I enjoyed it just as much as at the end. Like, really?
Okay, that may have came out awkward, and then I tried to salvage it, but it didn't work. And then I tried to save it. So it is a consistent show. I'm sure you'll bring up something else later that we'll talk about.
We'll get to that.
That I may tell you that you're wrong about, but
oh my god.
I would say that this is just a very fun spy show that doesn't really try to be anything more than that, and I think that's okay. Like, this was from the same studio that made Flip Flappers, and even though these are 2 very different shows,
wait, it was?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But
okay, I don't like it anymore.
They are the same in the sense that they're episodic, but I think Flip Flappers is a show that, like, not only strived to be something greater than it was, it succeeded at that, whereas I think Princess Principal was just happy enough to be a pretty good spy show. And it doesn't really delve into anything deeper. It's just an episodic show that I think does a good job of making its characters very likable. Every character in the show pretty much gets their chance to shine. The stories in general are well written. There are, occasional, like, good twists to the stories. Some of them are more, just straightforward, but I do think this was just a very good show overall. I wish I could say something deeper about it, because I really, really wanted to give this show I gave it an 8. I wanted to give it a higher score than that, because I loved everything that it did with, like, its aesthetic. I think it had a very good art style. I think, other than, like, a couple exceptions, I think it was pretty well animated as well. Like, there was some quality at times, but I think the production of the show was overall pretty top notch. What did you guys think of it?
So I liked Princess Principal. I couldn't help but draw comparisons to Joker Game, which I think you did when you recommended the show. Mm-hmm. But you did it in a way that's favorable for Princess Principal, whereas I think it's the comparison doesn't hold up. So I liked the show. I think that it got a little bogged down in its characters. What I really liked about Joker Game was that it delivered these little serials every week that were almost completely independent from one another. Mm-hmm. Whereas the little threads that ran between each episode of Princess Principal didn't really do enough for me. And I would have preferred a more independent style. I liked that each episode, it was told in a non-linear fashion. It didn't add a lot to the show, but it added a little bit while not detracting anything. So I liked that. But I mean, it was always going to come back to this. There was that episode. There was that we saved the laundromat episode right in the middle of it. That was so mind-bogglingly insane and out of left field that I was left reeling while I watched it. Because not only was the subject matter seemingly irrelevant to everything else that was going on, the episode was animated horribly. It was the most quality thing that I watched all season.
It did get a little South Park at times.
I think that's a bit too harsh, but yes, it was the worst looking episode of the show.
I don't know.
There was stuff this season far worse that I know you didn't watch, so your statement may technically still be accurate. But right. I do think that is being a bit too harsh on it.
Maybe, but when you compare it to the rest of the show that looked pretty fine or good or acceptable at the least, it was such a drop that it was it really just hit you when you saw these sequences. You're like, what show am I watching again? It looks like this. It was very surprising. And as the episode draws on, you're like, well, this is the whole episode. This is the I Saved the Laundromat episode. And, we like to have fun here, and we like to joke about we baked a giant pudding. But for a show like this to have an episode that is so, it's just not random, like random XD, but...
You mean like a filler?
Yeah, but it's more than filler, because the subject matter is so it stands in stark contrast to the rest of the show. Nowhere else in the show are the characters acting so benevolent or so charitable that they don't go around saving places. They just do espionage. For them to take this time to just save a random laundromat with girls they've never met, it was a strange.
Now, Funk, let me tell you why you're wrong.
Okay, you promised this.
So in spite of what I'm about to say, I still think this is by far the weakest episode of the show. Definitely from a quality standpoint, and probably also from an entertainment standpoint. Like, it wasn't a very gripping episode. But I also think it's actually thematically one of the strongest episodes of the entire show. And the reason why that is because the whole episode is about the princess who goes into this laundromat and essentially takes it from being this very run-down, hopeless organization, and she is able to completely turn it around to be very profitable and enjoyable from the people who work there are much happier after she comes in, takes over, and turns the whole thing around, which is itself a point of the entire show, because her character is all about wanting to become queen of this country in order to take it over and make the country itself much more successful and its citizens happier. So this is kind of like on a micro scale of her story, of her proving that she has the skills necessary to take something like this and turn it around to be successful. That's like the whole point of her character. And I think if you don't have an episode like this, if you don't have it, the show is just saying that you have to take the show's word for it, right? That the princess is capable of, once she becomes queen, she can do this. I think it is important to have an episode like this that shows how capable she actually is. Because at no point in the rest of the series do you really see that. Like, she tags along on like spy missions and stuff, but she never really does anything of importance. This is her episode to shine. And I do agree, you could have done this way, way better than they did. But I do think it is not as purposeless an episode as I think we all originally thought it was. I think it has genuine thematic purpose to the entire show overall.
Maybe, and I do enjoy it more when I recontextualize it, having watched the last couple episodes with the twist of who the princess is and who Angie is. Mm-hmm. Like that, it makes more sense in that regard, like as far as motivation goes. And you're right, it does serve a purpose in showing her, capability on her motives. But at the same time, the episode as a whole could have been a bit more streamlined. Yes. I think of this random interaction between the Japanese girl and the head laundromat person, where she's like, "Oh, you guys are so lazy," and then the laundromat girl's like, "Well, we're only lazy because the machines suck," and it's just. It's supposed to be like this development moment for the Japanese girl, and it's just kind of bungled and meaningless. But, you're right. I hadn't thought about that as far as its purpose and the princess's character, fleshing that out. So, you're right. I'll concede that.
Now that I think about it, isn't the laundromat episode just like an episode of Kitchen Nightmares, just with a laundromat?
Oh my god!
Like they literally even resolve it too by just throwing money at it.
I mean, doesn't that solve everything?
It kind of does. Yeah, you're not wrong. But I did really like this show. Like let me say this, I guess. If Drifters is like as 7 as a 7 can be, this show is like as an 8 can be, where it is right on that line where it's like I kind of feel like it's almost not good enough to be an 8, but I don't think it's bad enough to give a 7. It's a very safe show. It is a very safe show that it does have.
Oh no, you cut out, Matt.
Oh.
What'd you say?
Oh no. Am I here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever point you just made, you cut out, so go ahead and say it again.
I think it's because I moved my... I don't know, maybe I moved something. But, there was one episode, there are a few episodes that are, that were genuinely surprising. Like, the one episode where you meet, what's the titty monster's name?
Dorothy.
You meet
monster.
What?
You meet when you meet Dorothy's dad.
Yeah, I really like that episode.
Like, that episode was great because you get background behind a character. You meet her dad, who is just this, irredeemable drunk piece of shit. But then he does have a genuine, good side to him, and they just straight up kill him off. And it's just done very, it's just done very well, because you really would not expect that from the show that's for the most of the show is pretty safe. Like, nothing really happens that's that's really all that shocking or horrible. Like nobody
Yeah.
really gets into any real danger. It's just kind of like a lot of really. It's just kind of like cool gadgets and dumb fun.
Yeah, and that's definitely the show at its best, where it presents something and then kind of takes the rug out from under you, and then kind of does it again. Like that's what I loved about the first 2 episodes. Because
Yeah.
you have the first episode, which you kind of think you know what the premise is, and then you have the second episode, which takes place before it chronologically, because it's told out of order, and it completely recontextualizes whatever you learned in the first episode.
Right.
So there are times when the show does that, and I think that is absolutely when the show is at its best. But it is like I said, it's a safe show. It never tries to be anything more than it is, and I don't think there's anything wrong with a show that wants to do that.
No.
It is good to have shows like this that are just enjoyable. Like it's not the kind of show that 80% of every anime season is made up of.
No.
It's different enough to where it feels like you're watching something fresh, and solid enough to where you can say, yeah, this is a pretty easy show to recommend to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny, Frank?
I mean,
Frank's here.
yeah. Shut up. Fuck you. No, I really liked it. I think in terms of the conclusion, in terms of the arc, it ended pretty conclusively, but I would like to see a little more. I mean, we clearly do have all of these cases that, we don't know because it spent the majority of the first, I think it was like 8 or 9 episodes going like wildly out of order. So we have quite a few missing numbers here that I'd like to see.
It did have a bit of like a cartoon ending of where the villains just get away.
Yeah, I mean, they left it, they definitely left it open for continue to pursue it if they were to go down that route. I
Yeah,
don't
in
know
fact, I
how
would
it's
say
performing.
the show was like written with another season in mind. So
Okay, if that's the case, then I would really enjoy seeing more of this. I'm pretty sure we did all give it an 8. So to back up Matt's claim that it is like as 8 as an 8 could be, it's kind of like Konosuba in that regard. We all gave it the 8.
8 Squad.
I just realized this. I just realized that this show did the Platinum Games thing of having an enemy rival that has the same powers you do.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That is one thing. I kind of wish they did explore the whole like crazy, weird whatever the fuck that was device that she had.
Yeah.
Like maybe new season. I don't know. It like and I still don't understand why she turns into the frog in the OP.
Oh god, yeah, I totally forgot about that.
That's true.
Like I'm thinking maybe is that just because she's from the Black Lizard planet or something? But
I think-
Yeah, that's almost assuredly it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's like that is not really explained. They
Right,
kind of leave it
yeah.
as just like this is just like a quirk of this character. But I feel like that's one thing that points to there being more to the story that they
Right.
didn't tell.
Mm-hmm.
The ending was very much like that too. Like this is not the conclusion of the story they wanted to write. This is just a point we needed to leave off for now.
Right. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I thought overall it was a strong show.
Any thoughts, Kenny?
Oh, I didn't even hear you. Heard someone cut
Oh
out.
no.
Who's your favorite princess of the principals?
It's Dorothy, man.
He's not wrong.
Well, he's not wrong that she's his favorite.
Yeah. Blind Beatrice.
I don't know. There's really nothing else that can really be said about it. You guys kind of covered everything. I mean, the show
That's
really
what
didn't
we
take.
do.
I know that's what you do. Even though sometimes you're wrong, Steve. Even you.
When have I ever been wrong, Kenny?
A lot of times, but you just don't want to admit it.
Name one.
We'll save it for another podcast.
I guess we will.
The Steve's wrong cast.
Yes.
I'll tell you one time when Steve was wrong. Rakugo.
Oh.
It's true.
No, I was
Oh my
not
God.
wrong.
Wait.
I don't know. You've been outvoted.
I was the only sane one in an insane world.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Would you give it a 5? Yikes.
Listen, I was not entertained.
Yeah. This was not why you were here.
Listen, we're not going to fight old wars today. But we are going to take one last break, and then we'll be back to wrap it up with a few more
Let's
shows.
go.
Alright, welcome back one last time to the Luckycast. We got 3 more shows to talk about. First up is going to be Recreators, which the second half aired this season. And me, Funk, Frank, and Kenny all finished, I believe. Funk watched like half of the show today, so...
Sir, that was yesterday.
Well, I guess that's true now. So how did you feel watching that much of Recreators in one day, Funk?
Well, so the first half of the show, the first core, that is to say, I liked. I wasn't in love with it, but I felt that it really exceeded its premise. You know, we talked about this before. So I quite liked it. But watching the second half, I still liked it, but I was struck by how long-winded the show can be at times. Because it occurred to me that there's multiple instances of characters having just like 7 to 10 minute long conversations that don't really amount to much. They're overly verbose and ultimately almost kind of meaningless. I'm reminded of scenes like in ReZero, that scene where Rem is talking to the main character and they like drop the title, and it's this whole cathartic moment that's ultimately like very satisfying. And it was great. It was like this 10-minute long scene, just them just talking. And then the scenes in Recreators that are almost as long, of characters just speaking to one another that don't have that nearly as much weight or catharsis to them. And there's multiple instances of this. There's the scene in the first core of the main character talking to the magician girl outside of, like, I don't know if it's like a library or a government office, but they're just like outside a building in public, and it's like, it's fine, but it goes on a bit too long. Then there's a scene of the main character talking to like the trickster. I don't really know how to describe her character, but you know who I'm talking about. It's that girl who wears schoolgirl uniform. Yeah, they're talking in the stadium. Yeah, in like the last quarter of the show, and again, it's just a lot of talk to really obfuscate her motivations while also kind of laying them on the table. Like, it's overly cryptic. And it just doesn't need to be as long as it was. And there's one other instance of this too that I'm forgetting. But my point is that when I'm watching all these episodes back to back, these things kind of pile up on each other. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like left like, get on with it. Come on. Because the characters and the plot are not nearly as complex that need so much screen time dedicated to exposition.
I think it did it at the beginning because there was a lot to set up.
Well,
right.
Thank God you weren't watching that week to week, because it was like so infuriating when it would just be like every 2 weeks. They like stop like releasing an episode like every Saturday, and then you just get more of the same shit and just like, I don't know.
I do think that is a problem with some anime where
did they just run out of ideas? Or
no, it's because it airs week to week. Sometimes they put a little bit too much of recapping into it, even if it's not like obvious recapping, or it's just like showing scenes from the previous episode and stuff like that. It's characters going over stuff that's already been established before to kind of remind the audience of what they may have forgotten, like last week or the couple weeks before. But yeah, when you watch it all back to back, it's much easier to notice that sort of thing. And I do think, like, as someone who really enjoyed the show, I do agree with what you're saying, Funk. And I think the problem, I didn't like it. They do talk a lot in the first half of the show, but I do think the talk is more meaningful and impactful there because they are setting everything up, and because I think that the universe they've created is so interesting that every detail they said I was kind of hanging on to because I wanted to know more. But then once they hit like that midpoint climactic fight, and then they set up where they set up like right after that essentially exactly where the rest of the show goes. There's like 2 or 3 episodes of kind of filler where they're kind of just buying time until they're ready to have the finale. And that was the point of the show that I thought was the weakest, because it's just like, yeah, you could have done this show in much less time if you had cut a lot of that out. And there is some good character moments in there, but not enough to justify all that time spent just kind of waiting essentially for the big showdown at the end.
Right. And because when you watch the showdown, so to talk specifically of the scene of the main character talking to that one girl in the stadium, you said her name and I forget.
Magane.
Already. Magane. I was going to say Megane, but like, no, that's glasses. That can't be right. Magane. The whole purpose of that scene is just to delineate their characters' motivations and such. But then you look at what happens next, and it's just so cut and dry that there is no need to have that much time talking about any of the proceedings. And to do it in such a roundabout way that, like, I was watching it and I just had to be like, I feel like I missed the line somewhere. Let me go back and rewatch this. Like, oh, I guess that's what they're talking about. Like, it was so, I don't know if it was a translation thing, if it was meant to be this unnecessarily complex, but it just seemed overly wrought. And it really left me with a bad taste in my mouth. So I don't know. It's only one scene of one episode, whereas the rest of the conclusion goes along pretty smoothly. But leading up to there was just baffling. It was like this black hole of negativity that infested that entire experience of watching the second half of the show. And it's ultimately what I focus on, because the rest of the episodes were just like, okay, yeah, this next scene is fighting. There's this little mildly interesting bit where the one girl interacts with her creator that's instead just kind of like a manifestation of this guy's memories of her, which is a little weird, how he gets like emotional closure from something that he created, which is strange, but whatever. But the fact that they had that just a complete stop in a couple of the episodes just really negatively impacted my experience of watching the show.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that's also like a criticism I have seen from other people out there of just the show is a bit too wordy at times. So I can completely understand that point of view. It didn't, like, in the moment, sometimes it bothered me where it's like, yeah, okay, we can get on with this, but I wouldn't say it really impacted my overall enjoyment of the show. I think the thing I took away most from Recreators is that this show was something that had a bit more to it than I was expecting. Not in like terms of being complex or anything, because it is fairly straightforward, but it actually felt like it had something to say about the creative process and what it means to create something.
I mean, it's right there in the title, my dude. It's creators. Like,
yeah, but I mean,
creators.
like, a lesser show would just kind of take that premise and do nothing with it. Whereas I feel like this show was written by people who are very passionate about the thing they have created. In fact,
yeah, you can absolutely see that.
They're a bit too meta at times about it when it comes to this show. But just the way the actual creators in the show talk about their creations and the passion that goes into creating something. And you had the one character, the one female creator talking about, how much she struggled, how much she suffered before she came up with the Blitz Talker character. Like
Blitz Talker.
Which is a goofy name, but I mean that whole thing came from a real place of people who know what it's like to create things. And I think that whole aspect of the show translated very well, and to the point where, like, you would think on the surface it would be just about these characters who came from fictional universes fighting with each other, which, yeah, that's a part of it, but like this show is very much about the creators and not the things that they create, which is why when I see people who say like this show would be better if they had like if it featured like real like properties, IPs instead of like the ones they created specifically for the show. Like people say it would be better if they used real world franchises instead of these fictional ones. Whereas I don't really buy it because it's not really about them. It's about the people who create.
And you wouldn't be able to get the same kind of, I guess, honesty if you were to characterize the real creators of those real properties.
Yeah, because they'd probably be pressured into making them appear better than they really are.
On that note of that again, that honesty regarding the creative process and such, one of my favorite moments of the show occurred in the second core, where in one episode, and the way this was animated was kind of laughable, but the creator of Blitz Talker just kind of comes in and makes this really good sketch of her character in like 30 seconds, and the glasses artist just kind of runs out of the room in shame. But she runs out like really slowly and she's really poorly animated and looks dumb. But when the main character talks to her, she's like, yeah, I was just kind of in awe of how quickly this girl sketched that, and like I feel like I don't belong here and I'm not good enough, blah blah blah. And then later on, they talk to the girl who made that sketch, and she has those same feelings. Like, oh, when I saw this glasses girl, like I saw how good her work was, and I felt like I didn't belong. And like, there's that rampant insecurity in anybody with any kind of creative mind. It's very true to life. And I enjoyed that.
Frank?
No, I was very happy that the show ended with Midoriya deciding to try her hand at the creative process herself after seeing, all the ways that creation can, I guess, unify people and tie them together. I mean, Altair is kind of living proof of that, right? She's, all the people that, gave her power and created her after, Setsuno laid the groundwork for her, I guess, made this kind of community that sort of, banded together and kept her going. And
Did you cut out Frank?
Oh, sorry. Oh no, I mean, yeah. So Midoriya, she sees that and she sees there's beauty in that, and then she, decides to try her hand at it herself. And I think that's a nice way of making the whole entire thing come full circle, because when she sets up the gate for everybody, you're kind of like, all right, so what's she gonna do from here? Like, can she go through with them? And like obviously it's like, no, she can't do that, but she decides to do something worthwhile with that. And I don't know, I like where they decided to go with that personally.
I also really like that this show managed to create one of the most powerful characters in anime history and still came to a conclusion that didn't feel total bullshit.
Yeah, I feel that.
And the show would have felt completely flat if they had dropped that aspect of the show, because the whole meta narrative was built on that aspect of gaining audience approval for everything they do.
Right.
Where you can't write something that we, the real audience, are going to reject. And I think it's kind of the show's strength in how meta it is. It can be a bit overbearing at times, but I think it is done with a genuine purpose. It's not just like, oh, we're covering our asses here by being so tongue-in-cheek and meta about everything. It's just like, this is how the show needs to be in order to work. And it runs very smoothly and concurrent with how the audience are supposed to feel, how much we accept what is going on in the show, and I thought they did a very good job of that. I also lament the fact that Colin is not here to talk about this show, because I was totally going to ask him who would win in a fight, Altair or Saitama from One Punch Man, because I know how much it would piss him off. But I digress.
I mean, you can call him. Then again, it might be like 8 p.m. where he is, so he might be asleep.
Oh yeah, he's already to bed. Early to bed, early to rise with that kid.
Yeah, Recreators was just a fine show. I was definitely pleasantly surprised by how the quality ended up being relative to the premise, but it still wasn't anything amazing, I feel.
I I am happy that you enjoyed it, Funk, because it does seem like the kind of show you would not normally enjoy, which I guess speaks to its successes. I would say this is still one of the most enjoyable shows I've watched all year, just because I too did not expect that much out of it. Like, when I first heard of the premise, I thought it was probably going to be really, really dumb, or just like a Fate ripoff or something like that. And it was so much more than that. For a show that like used so many familiar aspects of anime, it felt like one of the most original shows I've watched in a while, just because how well it used those elements together. So I would still say this is one of my favorite anime of the year, but I can also understand the there are a lot of complaints about this show, and I do get them, but to me, I enjoyed the show not only from an entertainment standpoint, but because there was a lot more to it than I expected.
You know what was the best part of it?
What's that, Funk?
When they need to give the dating sim girl some kind of power set, and they're like, no one's gonna fucking buy this. This is a regular high school girl. How the fuck is she gonna get powers? And then the writer's just like, you know, I got this fucking fan disc. And then she's just like some immense martial artist, and they're like, well, I guess that's what the fans like. And it was just fucking perfect.
Yeah. It felt like the show didn't necessarily need to have that character and his creator, but I like that they included them, because every creator in the show has like a different relationship with their creation and how they feel about each other. But you didn't really have the character who kind of viewed their own creation as their own personal sexual object, which is a very real way that a lot of people who create these anime characters look at them. So I appreciated that they had that guy, and also that he was basically the main character from Konosuba, right down to the same voice.
It almost felt like that could have... I get that there might not have been enough to do with them, but they could have been there from the start.
Mm-hmm.
I think
the only reason they weren't is just so they could have new characters to introduce in the second half.
Right. And like the other character they introduced, it was good that he was kind of, you know, he's obviously the foil to the other guy, but again, I felt that they might have been better served by having him around longer, because he's kind of introduced, and then the next time he shows up, he's just on the other guy's side like very quickly. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's not perfect. It has to work at a different clip than the source. Like, this is based on something, right? This isn't an original.
Oh, this is an original show.
Are you fucking kidding me? Then there's no excuse. You definitely could have had him from the beginning. I was about to be like, yeah, he's probably introduced at some point in the manga that, you know, he couldn't adapt perfectly, but so I understand. But no. You could have had this. And, you know, you're right that they definitely wanted to have, like, some kind of hook for the latter half. And, we got these new characters in the intro, so watch. I don't know. Felt like they could have been there all along, and it might have been better for it.
Not perfect, but I still enjoyed it.
Mm.
So I know one show those who watched it did not enjoy was Koi to Uso.
Oh my god.
So, Frank?
I watched one episode.
It's a good thing that you
I
dropped
watched
it after that
1.5.
one episode.
It's a good thing to drop.
No, I mean, I'm glad that you guys dropped it, because, you know, we, as in Matt and I, we both watched it to episode 12, and I can tell you that between episode 1 and episode 12, the story made absolutely zero progression. And I don't mean that, like, in terms of, you know, like, exaggeration, or I'm not being facetious about it or anything like that. Like, from point A to point B, none of the characters in this show make any reasonable development whatsoever, I would say. It's all...
That is completely true.
Yeah, it's all... Oh man, Misaki goes on this rant about lies. And then, you know, Yukari is torn between the two girls. And then
love. Love and lies.
Right. And then Ririna is like, oh, you should be with Misaki, because, you know, like, even though it's not your match, you love her. And, you know, like, it's just the same thing for 12 fucking episodes.
This is like anti-NTR, where the characters are like saying, saying like, "No, you should cuck me,"
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like, what? But okay,
So what? Like, I don't know if this is brought up on the mid-season podcast, but what the hell was this show about?
so okay, this show was what the show is about is it takes place in a not too distant Japan, futuristic Japan.
Not too distant future Japan. Because I assure you, Japan is still pretty distant.
Japan. Okay, I mean, really, realistically, it takes place in an. I guess it's probably better to say an alternate, modern day Japan, where sometime in the 70s, Japan implemented this system that's supposed to like match you with a partner. It's like basically scientifically, it's like scientifically arranged marriage. Basically, it takes everybody in the country. They basically take all your quirks, all your personality. They study you over the course of all the years that you're alive, and then at the age of 16, they determine your partner, and that partner based off of like your person, how you are, just your general being.
It's your best match.
They decide best match based off of everything that they know about you, and it works. Because everybody in this, like, basically this is supposedly to combat like low birth rates and stuff. It's like forced arranged marriage, but done in a way so that everybody is happy. And like the show makes its first blunder by going into this immediately by making the characters act as if this was a system that they're not used to, despite the fact that it's been around since like the 70s. Because we have characters like the main character who is like, man, I'm like in love with this girl already. This whole system is bad. I don't like it at all. And it's like, you wouldn't even have these thoughts whatsoever if you were actually living in a society that was like this. Especially one where it has been proven, and the show itself proves, works perfectly fine.
Not only that, but the foundation of the girl that he, like his relationship with the girl that he quote unquote loves, the one that isn't his assigned partner, is so dumb. Like,
yes.
I mean, we've all seen not everyone here, but most of us here have seen the first episode. The foundation comes from, he hands her a fucking eraser, and it's like,
literally, yeah, the foundation. So the show is, I mean, what the show is really all about is that this boy is in love with a girl. He can't be in love with this girl though, because because the system has already arranged him his partner for life. And it's the drama comes around the fact that he loves this girl, he's assigned this other girl, and they're like supposed to be like societal, like they're like people basically he'll like ruin his life if he goes against the system supposedly, because anybody who it's like a whole like I don't know, fucking what's the word? It, like, you know how Japan kind of is, where like there are certain things where if you do this or that, like they like the whole society kind of looks down on you.
There's a stigma.
There's a stigma. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. There's like a stigma with it. So if he were to go against this, like it would basically make his life a whole lot more difficult than it already is. And he basically has to choose between these two girls, the girl he loves or the girl he was assigned with. The problem is that over the course of the show, he realizes, well, shit, this system works pretty fucking well because he likes this other girl too. And it's just really dumb because like, first off, the very foundation of his reasoning for falling in love with this other girl, like, when the foundation of your fucking show just falls flat on its face, you just have all you really have here is just a pile of shit that just has more shit piling up upon it. Like, you can't really build something from nothing, and that's basically what the show is trying to do from the start. Because you have these two characters, they're just like in grade school or whatever, and what establishes their like romance is that like the reason why this boy falls in love with this girl is because he gives her like a fucking eraser, and she says thank you to her. That's it. Like that's literally
That's
it.
literally it. That's literally
And
it.
You're telling me that when you were in high school, you didn't fall in love with someone because of that?
Because they dropped a fucking eraser and they passed it back to him. Oh yeah, that happened to me so many times. Let me tell you. Like, but what's even worse though is that he decides like, okay, I'm gonna get my arranged partner tonight at midnight. So fuck it. I won't be able to be with her anyways. So I'm just gonna.
I thought you were gonna say I'm gonna get my eraser back.
So I mean that's the thing though. He like keeps this fucking half of his eraser, like in like a special like chest, like a memory thing. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But so he decides that he talks to this girl and is like, hey, meet me after school because I want to talk to you about something. He goes they meet each other and it turns out, oh, she is also in love with him. Oh my god. And guess what? She's in love with him for literally the same exact reason. So now that we've reached plausibility levels that are already off the charts, naturally they just start making out. And and of course, and what happens then, like the weird thing about the show is so there's like supposed to be this like sense of mystery going on because he gets a text that's supposed to be his like his arranged like partner message thing. And at first it's like all mumbled and it's like, oh, this is your arranged partner, this girl. And he's like, oh my god, but then it goes away and he's like, wait, what's going on? And then it turns out that was just like a glitch or something. And like the real arranged marriage people, like these like people from like I guess the arranged marriage facility, whatever the fuck they call it in the show. They like come out. They just kind of like come out of the bushes and they're like, "Oh hey, here's your arranged marriage partner." Like we were just kind of waiting here till midnight at this random playground in the park because you just knew that we were gonna be here. Like it's just so awkward the way it's done. It's like the creator of the show, or at least the manga. I'm guessing this is how it was in the manga because the way it's done just seems so awkward and like they didn't even think about what was actually happening. Because it's like you have these two characters at like midnight, past curfew, just kind of making out. The guy like gets his like fucking thing, but like it's delivered to him by hand in paper form by two people from like this facility that just like walking in on them out of nowhere. And it's like, what the fuck? And like there's no thought whatsoever put into like the sci-fi or like weird like kind of mystery elements of the show. It's just kind of there and it's handled horribly. Like there's another thing.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Like I was also gonna say, like there's another thing, like apparently there's another boy in the show who like apparently has some connections too with this facility. Like there's like a very brief little clip that shows him like supposedly talking to somebody from this facility that like arranges these marriages, and it's like, what did that have to do with anything? Or I guess we'll never know because that's never brought up again. And then you have this other girl who is like apparently this genius girl who helps actually pick out the arranged marriages based off like their biological aspects and everything. And like she has some mysterious stuff attached to her, but that's never resolved in the anime. It's just kind of there because it was in the manga. And like most of the show is just like focused on these two girls and this guy, and basically just them all like saying, "Oh, I love you. No, you should love her. No, you should love her. No, we gotta do this. Oh, let's make out. Okay, here's the makeout section." It's just like so much fluff and nonsense and nothing happening. Oh yeah, also you gotta have the male character who's like secretly gay, just randomly kiss the MC while he's sleeping.
So
It's
can I ask a question?
yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Does this system factor in gay marriage?
No, I mean
Well, it's
like
all
I-
about
the
it's
fuck
all
do
about
you
birth
think,
rate.
Steve?
So
it's all about
But
birth
does
rates.
it match up gay people with straight people then?
I guess so. I mean, the system works is the thing. Literally,
Does it?
that's it does.
Steve, it's fucking Japan. Gay people don't exist.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, Steve. There's literally not every single moment in the show where like you see two characters who are arranged matched together. There's not a single moment where it like makes any sort of argument that the system does not work. Is the thing. Everybody is happy in this society.
So
So
at
if
any
this-
point, does it delve into what the potential flaws of the system could be?
Not really, which is what's really stupid. Other than the fact that that there's a gay character in the show, but the problem is that that's only brought up like one time.
Because
And-
this reminds me of like Psychopaths if they never delved into anything that was wrong with Psychopaths.
Right.
Yes,
I mean-
that's exactly what this is, and it's really stupid because it's clear that the whole system was made by the author not because he wanted to make like an interesting sci-fi kind of story, but because he just wanted there to be a reason for there to be like a love triangle. Like
Or he was pressured by the Japanese government to raise birth rates.
Yes, like there's literally no reason for anybody to complain about this system whatsoever, according to what is shown in this show.
And I imagine, like, yeah, that's not, like, the stuff I'm talking about is not the focus of the show, and it doesn't have to be. But it's also
not.
the kind of thing is, if you make up this ridiculous premise, sometimes people are going to ask questions.
Yes, and that's the problem, is that the premise is just stupid. Like, it feels like it was written by, like, a 14-year-old girl. And, like, it's just dumb. Oh, yeah, also, that I forgot, what else was there? Oh, yeah, well, one thing, I really like the part where they're doing a play of Romeo, I mentioned this before, they're doing a play of Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, God.
And it's like, I get it. They're star-crossed lovers. The characters in Romeo and Juliet are star-crossed lovers. And then the fucking characters, like the fucking MC, he's like, hey, isn't this just like the play that we're doing right now? Isn't that weird? And it's like, fuck you. Just fuck you.
Become self-aware.
God, what show are we fucking talking about?
Love and
Quite
Lies.
so. Love and Lies.
God damn it.
There was something else that was really, really dumb that happened. Now I'm starting to lose.
The sex ed.
Oh, there's one part. Okay, so there's one part in the show where all the like newly arranged partners have to go to the to this building to like kind of they basically have a sex ed class. So the government like is like, yo, guys, like, sex is really great, and you should just like fuck right now. And
It's
they literally.
It's basically about as awkward as you could possibly imagine it.
And so they teach them about sex, and essentially show them a porn flick, and and it just gets it just gets everybody super horny, and then what they do is that all the newly arranged partners have to stay overnight there, in a like hotel room with one bed with like condoms and shit in there, so it's like. It's just really dumb, and how the show resolves itself is really, really stupid too, because like this is obviously an anime original ending kind of, but like I highly doubt this is in the manga, because if this is in the manga, that would be really fucking stupid. So the show kind of like, at the very end of the show, the characters finally think of a way to get around this system, which is, like, something that probably should have happened about 6 episodes ago, where they're like, oh, hey, there's a loophole in the system where if, like, the two arranged partners... Oh, that's the other thing. So the girl who's arranged with the guy, like, she obviously has feelings for him, showing that the system's working, but she's so, like... like she believes in this, in like the other girl's love, like in these two characters' love so much that she wants him to be with her instead of with herself. So they like devise this plan where they're like, okay, so we're gonna pretend that we hate each other because that's gonna show that the system, that like we weren't matched correctly. And if we like pretend that we hate each other for long enough and like make and convince them that we really don't like each other, then the marriage is stopped, and you can be with her. The problem with that is that, well, she hasn't gotten hers yet, has she? So she'll probably just get hers. And like if like wouldn't he just get his like runner up, which is probably not her? Like it just no thought is
runner ups.
Yeah, they do.
The system's not very good then if you have to have a runner up.
Well, I know. Like that's that's the other thing. It just shows like no thought is put into this whatsoever, and like basically like they devise this plan, and it's like, okay, we're gonna do that, which they of course never go into because that's episode 11. And after they like decide, they devise this plan, like the girl's like, oh hey, when I get my new partner, like I'm not gonna know how to kiss, so let's make out, like to train. And so they just make out with each other. The girl who is arranged, like not the other girl. So it's and then it basically ends with the boy just like, man, I love both of you guys. It's like, yeah.
Sounds like a real winner.
It ends with the two girls like doing like, apparently like these two girls are like asked by somebody to do a little photo shoot where they're wearing like wedding dresses.
I was gonna say if the show ends with the two girls getting together, like that'd be redeemable.
That would be something. Now that would be
then it will be Frankcore.
But so basically, so I don't even know what this like. It feels almost like this ending is like supposed to be supporting polygamy, but I don't know. It's just stupid. It's really dumb, and there's a very good reason why this show went from like a 7.5 down to a 6.95 over the course of a few days after it ended. It's just bad. It's really bad and stupid, and nothing happens in it other than characters making out and spit trails.
Ew.
It
I'm
feels
glad I
like-
didn't watch it.
It feels like both in art style and in some twisted way in theme, it feels like it's very much banking on Scum's Wish, but where Scum's Wish took like this actually thoughtful and empathetic approach to its fucked up characters. Like, this is just nonsense. I mean, there's no real conflict that happens here that changes between point A and point B. Like, as I said in the beginning, the conflict in episode 1 is basically the same as the conflict in episode 12. None of the characters grow. And the writing is such that, they just bellyache about it for 12 episodes straight without anything actually really being done about it. Like,
until they finally realize, oh, here's a loophole.
Right.
We can do that.
Yeah. His problem in episode 12 is the same problem he had in episode 1. It's like, oh man, I want to be with this girl, but this girl is also pretty hot. And you know what? Like, oh man, like, this one girl is really cute, the one that I got arranged with, but I shared an eraser with this one girl when I was like 2 years old, and she's got big tits. What am I gonna do? Like,
that's the other thing I love. That's the other thing I love is how, like, after he supposedly falls in love with this girl that he shared his eraser with, they have no verbal contact with one another for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So there you go.
It's just very frustrating to watch, and I'm glad that I never have to watch another episode of Love and Lies ever again.
Written by the same series compositioner. Okay, same writer as Divine Gate, by the way.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Although I mean, they've done a lot of stuff, so that's not really a fair thing to make.
Yeah, but you never want a divine gate on your resume.
You never, you never want a divine gate on your resume. That is true.
All right,
Bad show.
last show on the list is Aho Girl.
Oh
and
boy.
Matt, I think you're the only one who watched this.
There's not a whole lot to say about Aho Girl, other than the fact that it's officially more Kino than Gamers, due to the fact that it did not have an entire banana peel slipping joke in its entire run, despite being a show about a girl who literally eats nothing but bananas.
And it also annoyed Funk for some reason.
It also
wouldn't
annoyed
get into
Funk
that.
because
normies don't know how to shut the fuck up.
because normies really like this show because it features girls getting beaten. But I mean, they all this show is about is it's basically just a gag show about a girl who is literally so dumb that she gets nothing but zeros on all her tests.
I think that takes a certain amount of intelligence, though, doesn't it? Like to get
That-
to
I guess that is
consistently
kind
get every question wrong.
That
I mean-
that is kind of I guess somewhat of a twist too, is that she's kind of so dumb that she like actively makes other people dumber by being around her, and like which is an actual thing that kind of happens in the show. But
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to you.
basically that is basically what happens. She's like, she's the main character. She's just really loud and obnoxious and annoys everybody around her. It's less that she's stupid and more that she's just like flat out autistic, because she really does just like blurt things out that like nobody with any social cues, like with any knowledge of social cues, would say. Like, for example, there's a character who comes out who has big tits, and she's just like, "Whoa, your tits are massive," and she just starts like groping her.
Groping, you say?
Yes. And
It's a trap, Steve. Don't watch it.
what? But like
Traps,
so
you say?
you have the main girl Yoshiko, who's just a giant dumbass. You have her friend in quotes because he hates her, but she just constantly follows him around. Who's like this hard ass who is just really who just has a very like he just has a never-ending resting bitch face, basically, and he's super serious about everybody. And every time he just basically just punches her in the face every time she does something stupid.
You would too.
I mean, yeah, you would. And it's just wacky antics with all these different characters. And yeah, it's okay. It's not great. Like, the humor is pretty. Like, it got a couple chuckles out of me here and there, I guess. It's not anything amazing. It's certainly no Osamatsu-san, but it's not like. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's fine. It's okay. Although it does have a overwhelming focus on panty shot jokes for whatever reason.
Well, you never really need a reason for those.
Oh, I guess not. But like, there's like a flashback in the very last episode where it kind of shows how the girl and like the main guy met each other when they were like only 5 years old, and it does not hesitate to continue to do panty jokes with her even when she's a 5-year-old. Although it's not like, never at any point is it really like, are any of the panty shot jokes really, or panty related jokes really sexualized in any way. It's just kind of there. But yeah, it's okay. Soft kinda recommendation, maybe.
Jesus Christ.
If you don't like it, I mean, if you don't like characters constantly screaming, then you're probably not gonna like this show. Maybe I'm kind of used to it just because of what I've watched in the past, and I'm not talking about anime. I'm just talking about general random shit on the internet. But yeah, it's it's fine. It was way better than I was ever expecting it to be. That's for sure.
So watching just random shit on the internet is a prerequisite to watching this show, so you can
Yes.
not be
Specifically,
annoyed. Okay.
specifically DJY 1991 stuff.
I don't know who the fuck that is.
You probably wouldn't. Neither would anybody else here.
Nope, not me.
Yeah.
Are you playing some stupid video game, Kenny?
No,
You sure?
pretty sure. I'm just sitting here staring at a TV that's turned off and just doing this with my controller.
I see.
Yes.
Well, with that note, that brings us to an end of another anime podcast.
Yay!
Somehow we keep making it through.
You already did the drop list?
The drop list is... Are you kidding me?
Do we do our rankings for the season?
Yes, we have to
Oh,
do
holy
that.
shit.
I
God
thought you just said
damn
we
it.
were done.
No, this is the thing we do at the end, Kenny.
Oh, I wasn't sure.
I fucking forgot.
Well, I'm gonna make you go first, Kenny.
What?
What's your top 3 of the season, Kenny?
Get back to me on that.
Oh, okay, Frank.
All right. I would say number 3, Princess Principal. Does Boku no Hero count? 'Cause, I mean, technically it aired last season.
I would say only shows that started airing this season.
Okay, then.
Somewhere Colin is reeing.
Sorry. So yeah, I'd still say number 3 is Princess Principal. Number 2, I'd probably say is Kakegurui, and number 1, I'd say what? Who's doing that? Who's making sounds? Number 1 is Owari Monogatari second season.
Fuck, that aired? Who knew?
Yeah.
4th
All
best
right.
anime on Mal.
Jesus.
No, it was number 1 for a long time.
How about you, Matt?
Number 3 would be Princess Principal. Number 2, I don't know. I guess Tsurezure Children. Number 1, Made in Abyss.
Tsurezure Children was pretty good. I didn't get to talk about it, but it was a solid show.
The season was weird.
Yeah,
I gave a lot
it
of
was an odd
shows
season.
4s. The end of the season brought my mean score from a 7.01 down to a 6.97.
Nice.
So there you go.
How about you, Funk?
Number 3, Kakegurui. Number 2, Princess Principal. And number 1, Made in Abyss.
Great. I'll say number 3 was New Game. Number 2, Made in Abyss. Number 1, Princess Principal. Kenny?
Number 3 was the Conte Collection movie. Number 2 was the Conte Collection movie. And number 1 was the Conte Collection movie.
Kenny.
So I was telling this to DL earlier. Last night, I started watching the Kantai Collection movie, and after 15 minutes, I started questioning what I was doing with my life and stopped watching it.
Oh,
Nice. Nice.
I'm kidding. Okay. No, number 3 was New Game. Number 2 was Recreators, and number 1 was Princess Principal.
You broke the rule!
Why?
Recreators started airing last season!
I don't care.
God damn it!
Kenny's above the law.
The rebel without a cause.
Kenny. You better be careful, Kenny. You don't want to be the next mule.
Next
Oh my god.
You
I'm
said
just
it.
kidding. We could never mule Kenny.
I thought I was the
Ken-
next mule.
Kenny
Kenny's
doesn't
our-
care enough to be muled.
Kenny's also our mascot.
What? See, I still don't understand how
That's
I'm the
what
mascot.
Mule always said he was.
Yeah, but he was wrong.
But that
Because
would
Kenny
make-
was always the mascot.
Never mind. I just won't even ask.
It's probably for the best. All right, It's gonna
Wait,
wrap
what?
up another anime season.
Oh no.
We did it, guys.
We did do it. Say
We're
goodbye,
here.
everyone.
I heard a no.
Don't forget to say goodbye.
We'll see you at the end of the year podcast.
Oh,
Truly, we are all
God.
made in
Full
abyss.
mid-season podcast first.
Huh?
Full
Goodbye.
mid-season podcast first. No.
Yes.
Yeah, before end of the year podcast.
No.
Fuck.
Yes.
What?
Fuck you,
What?
Frank.
Yeah. Fuck all.
Here I am. Doing everything I can. Something, 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 because I'm a Superman. It was a Tony Hawk joke.
I know.
Yeah, you didn't laugh.
I never played any of the Anthony Hawk games.
Whoa, really?
I don't like skateboarding.
I don't know. Tony Hawk games were for like the kind of kids who collected like wrestling action figures.
Yeah, that's
Shit
so
like that,
good.
you know?